Test, test. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. We are diving back into Breath of the Wild for, I think, one last stream, at least for now. If you are new to this series of streams, welcome. Thank you so much for checking it out. By way of a quick introduction, my name is John. I am a game developer. I've been working in the industry for the past 10-ish years on small indie projects and big AAA projects alike. I'm very passionate about video games and about game design, and this series is designed to talk about what makes a great opening to a video game. Now, it's no secret, if you know me, that I am not a huge fan of Breath of the Wild in general. However, I do think the opening hour or so, let's just say maybe more like 2 or 3 hours, in the Great Plateau is one of the strongest openings to a game in recent memory. Not to mention that I think the things that it did for the industry at the time that it came out and what it represented in terms of like a shift in game design paradigms or whatnot was such, and I know this is a pun, but whatever, such a breath of fresh air that I think the industry really needed and really benefited from. So, the last couple of streams we talked about just how great this game is at instilling a sense of like curiosity in the player and motivating the player to find ways to explore and indulge in that curiosity. So essentially, the game is really, really good about basically giving you the basic tools that you need to start exploring and delving into and understanding the world and interacting with it in meaningful ways, and then also manages to do so in a way that doesn't force your hand, doesn't constantly pander to you, and encourages you to experiment and to basically just figure stuff out on your own. I made a really big deal about the whole thing where you find an axe, and you can just sort of figure out on your own without. Hi, cat. Okay. Got a cat jump scare there. 1 second. Apparently, my cat is trapped in my room. Game design is on hold for a sec. Hi, buddy. Thank you for asking. Good job. Be right back. Okay. My dog is a little bit of a. She loves my cat, I'm sure, but also has a tendency to try to camp spots that he frequents, and basically like is a little bit of a bully. So we're trying to get them to get along better. But anyway, the point that I wanted to try to convey about the introduction to this game is that essentially it does a very good job of equipping you with what you need to know, but then not forcing your hand, not insisting that you do things in a particular way, and kind of just instilling a sense of curiosity that then leads to its own discoveries. So, for example, one of my favorite moments, as simple as it might sound, is just the moment where you find some trees near a ravine or a gulch or whatever you want to call it, and you don't immediately have a solution in terms of how to access the other side of the gulch. But if you just look nearby, there are some trees, there's an axe, and you can notice like some gouges in the side of the tree or whatever, and just put two and two together that, hey, maybe if I interact with this object over here in, like an intuitive way, like a human being would with some curiosity, you can make yourself a bridge across. Now, that seems like such a basic, like obvious thing, right? Like, obviously, you'd be able to do that. Seems like that now, but part of the reason why is because games like Breath of the Wild came along in an era of extremely nauseating, asphyxiating, um, you know, just the control and cinematic focus in games to the point where there wasn't really a whole lot of that happening. Um, the freedom to make mistakes, to explore, to get stuck, to teach yourself how to play the game, that wasn't something that was really being done when this game came out. Certainly, certain games were doing it, but major AAA releases like this, like, weren't taking those risks, right? So, with that being said, I think the goal for this stream is to see if my memory of the game beyond the Great Plateau holds up. what I remember is that once you leave the Great Plateau, the game's quality takes a massive drop simply because the principles that the game tries to instill in you in the earlier parts of the game, it just doesn't have the resources to keep up with. So there are certain areas like I forget if it's called, it's not Outset Island, right? It's but there's like that's from a different game, I think. But there's an island where you basically get stuck and you can't get off of it until you um defeat the trials on that particular island. It's like way down south on the map, or something like that. And so I think that there's things like that where the game kind of focuses its efforts and then becomes like has a glimpse of that mastery that we see in the Great Plateau. But I feel like a lot of the rest of the game was kind of open and empty and barren and didn't really live up to the promise that was put forward by the initial area. So I want to see if my preconceived notion, um, you know, actually holds up after, 9 years of having a chance to mature, hopefully at least a little bit. So the goal that I want to propose for myself tonight is I want to just pick a location and see, can I get to that location using my own means? If so, what is the path that the game presents towards getting there? What interesting landmarks are there along the way? And what does our journey look like in terms of getting there? I don't honestly really care all that much about like doing side quests and getting XP and treasure and stuff like that. I just want to see, does the game itself at a large scale hold up to the promise that it suggested to us via the Great Plateau? If I just set out on an adventure and start exploring, where does that go? So, looking around, last time we were kind of wandering off to the side, I wasn't super having amazing fun by the end of it just because I felt like I was kind of wandering off course. So I decided for tonight I wanted to reset and just take a look around and see what I genuinely find interesting. So in terms of landmarks, I do find, I think that like split in the mountain over there is really interesting, as well as the foggy area behind it, like that peak over there. So let's chart a course. Let's try to figure out how we're going to get there. There's a couple of different ways we could take. There's this tower, which then goes through the gulch. We could also start here and then work our way up to the side. The goal is going to be to get here, to get to the top of the mountain. So let me see if I can place a pin. There we go. And let's see how long it takes and what sort of adventure that we have on the way there. We could, of course, go through here, across the bridge, and get to that tower, and then from that tower, go across here, and get to that tower, and then move our way up. So, given that the game seems to be nudging us in the direction of, fulfilling those towers, and we do seem to have some prominent sign markers, and this is also taking us through what looks like a forest biome or something, like a jungle biome rather. Let's do that. Let's go across the bridge because it does seem like a major landmark. Let's see what we find along the way and just keep going. I think actually I'm going to go here first because I am very curious about if this ruin has anything to it. And then we'll just kind of see what the game teaches us and what we can learn. And depending on our experience, we can decide whether to proceed or not next time. I will say that, like, as an initial area, like moving on from the start, there is a good amount of intrigue here so far. When I compare it to something like Elden Ring, it's not, which is, not a super fair comparison, but it's not quite like hitting my personal interests as hard as Elden Ring does. But there's still some interesting stuff. This bridge seems very significant, seems like it's telling a story. That seems important. The towers, I don't see them with the same kind of like intrigue in terms of lore or whatever as maybe some of the other things we might want to explore, but it still stands out as being noteworthy and worth exploring. The jungle itself, I don't know, it kind of stands out as being distinct from the background, so because of that, I'm interested in learning more about it. But really, just the way that my brain works, the things that I'm most interested are things like this. The tower way in the distance kind of seems a little forlorn. Anything that's hidden, like behind smoke or anything like that, like this looks like it would be really interesting. So let's put a pin there actually. Can I zoom in with this? I keep forgetting. But yeah, like going up here would be interesting. And then, you know, stuff like Death Mountain is very obvious. It's almost too obvious. Like, I want to go get lost and experience some more stuff. And then, of course, that giant fucking bird. I bet, like, a lot of people are going to see that and immediately be like, that's where I want to go first, right? Um, but yeah, let's just go explore. Let's see what happens. No specific agenda tonight. Happy to kind of talk about whatever. Just kind of wanted to pick up from where we left off last time and see where the road takes us. I see Shinigami has joined us. Welcome, Shinigami. Hope you're doing well. That's really exciting to hear about the Japan trip. I hope you're. I know you're feeling stressed now, but I hope you're able to find something to look forward to there. It sounds like it could be a lot of fun. Let's see. Yeah, I think you are the only one here at the moment. Saria is usually here, but I think she mentioned that she had a date this evening. So she might be showing up later. She might miss the stream. No big deal. Sorry if you wind up catching this after the fact. I hope you had a lovely time. Um, and let's see. I'm experimenting with the altered controls, so it takes me a moment to get used to it. But let's see. Sounds fun. The manipulation stuff. Not sure what you're referring to with the manipulation stuff, but yeah, hopefully you do find the journey kind of interesting. If you see anything that you really want to go check out, I probably won't go up to Death Mountain. I'm probably going to stick to like the basic overview of what I described before, but you know, definitely open to talking about the world. Um, oh, regarding Zetsu, you think Zetsu is overrated already? You personally think Shikamaru is the best written? Yeah, I don't know. I think Zetsu is the one thing where I uh, I don't understand the Zetsu thing where he supposedly is the manifestation of Madara's will, because when he gets manifested, when he shows up, you know, it genuinely seems like Madara is creating him. Now, I don't know if he's actually Kaguya's will, how Madara could be fooled into, like, what was he doing the whole time until Madara, like, created him? I don't know. It's a really, really weird retcon. Well, let me read this book real quick. I had the 8 priceless relics I stole from Hyrule Castle in treasure chest. I shall write down their locations. Very generous of you, Misko. Um, the ancient mask eyes at the ruins where soldiers gathered from there. The waters of Lake Kolomo are visible. The green garments of the man who wished to be a fairy are hidden in the ruins of Hyrule Field. Find these pieces at the ruins where trade flourished, at the ruins where sinners were imprisoned, and at the village ruins next to farmland where many people once gathered. The Princess of Twilight, whose stories are handed down alongside those of the hero of Twilight. Her helmet can be found at the temple. Oh, interesting. That's really cool. Yeah, I kind of wish Sari was here because I'd love to ask her about the lore implications here. Armor worn by fierce phantoms. Hyrule Field. Okay, so we're going to spend a lot of time in Hyrule Field, I think. Ceremonial grounds. Okay. So, oh, actually, that is updating the treasures. So let me scan through this real quick. I have to say, I do find the EX stuff to be a little bit immersion breaking. I'm not a huge fan of it so far, but I probably shouldn't judge it until I actually... Yeah. Until I, look into it a little bit further, right? Till I give it a chance. Shinigami says, yeah, sounds nice. Yeah, I hope it goes well. Hope everything goes okay. Let's see. Yeah, the compliment of Japan. Yeah, I really do love it there. It's, I hope you have a wonderful time, and I hope that you have a chance to explore things that you find meaningful and interesting. I forget, do you speak some Japanese? Will you be able to kind of, like, converse with people, at least, to help find your way around? I mean, when I went there a couple years ago, and I relied pretty heavily on, like, Google Translate and stuff, and it actually worked pretty well. Like, I think, especially in areas like Tokyo, um, first of all, like, English speaking is relatively common, but even for those places that don't, or those folks that you'll bump into who don't speak English, you know, most people are pretty patient with translator apps, and they work pretty well. You can make yourself understood fairly easily, right? So yeah. Oh, you don't understand, or you don't speak? That's okay. Yeah, it won't be hard to get around, especially. There was one situation where, like, my partner and I almost got kind of screwed because we were off in a very rural area, and we very nearly missed the last bus, and we had, like, no place to stay, like, nothing we could really do at that point. So thankfully I didn't have reception on my phone, so thankfully I happened to remember the the phrase for which I now don't remember, the phrase for um like, where's the bus, or when is the bus coming here, or whatever, right? And we were able to get back in time. But yeah, that was a close one. I think we would have been fine, honestly. It wasn't like a dangerous area or anything, but it was just like way away from the cities and stuff like that. And we very could have easily, like, just had to rely on the kindness of strangers or something to get by the night. Wow, that didn't last very long, did it? Yeah, big oof, yeah. Oh, your dad lived there before you were born. You have a family member there. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Are you gonna get a chance to reconnect with them while you're there? Yeah, I must say, people seem to be very enamored with the weapon system when the game first came out, and the degradation and all that. I still don't like it very much. I much prefer the idea of being able to form a relationship with a couple of weapons maybe, and having your relationship with those weapons grow over the course of the game. And I feel like that gets really kind of thrown by the wayside, obviously, in this game. The idea being that I think you're supposed to just, like, 1 second, I don't want to do this. Okay, so I can press that to get out of it. Okay, yeah, I think the idea... Oh, what the hell? So apparently I can go into, like, bullet time if I aim while I'm falling. What was I trying to say? Yeah, so, like, in a game like, fucking Bloodborne, I always really enjoyed being able to, basically just pick a weapon and have that weapon carry you through the game, and then develop a relationship with it and get to know it, like, really well, and then, maybe you'll find an upgrade at some point, and then you'll go through that process again. But I guess I'm, like, weapon monogamous, for lack of a better word, and I really have to have a reason to break up with the previous weapon before moving on to something new. So I don't intuitively very much like having to constantly switch between weapons, but I do admit it does encourage, like, it feeds into, like, the survival theme of the game. I think it's appropriate. It's a smart game design decision. Like, I don't have any actual objections to it on those grounds. But it does kind of get fatiguing after a while, because personally, I just want to be able to, rely on my tools. Let's see. It makes sense for the weapons to break, but it seems to ruin flow compared to being indestructible. Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's sort of a compromise, right? Because at the end of the day, the sort of player and developer that I am, my philosophy, to use a sort of pretentious term, is that I want to kind of, like, pick a direction, or pick, like, an aesthetic, pick a an overall I guess you would call it, like, a pillar, like something that's very important, and then stick to that. So if this game decides, okay, our most important pillar is survival, right, in the wild, in the hostile wilderness, then it makes sense to have different weapons that are, and also there's the narrative about, like, Hyrule itself having kind of fallen to decay and ruin. It makes a lot of sense for the weapons that you have to reflect that story and to reflect that purpose. So I think it's actually a smart decision. It's just sort of that, like, functionally, going through the levels and stuff, it doesn't really feel all that fun to engage in. But I still, for me personally, but I still appreciate the commitment to the ideal. Oh, this is cool. Nice. Yeah, I love how that just sort of happened naturally and organically, right? It's very compelling. Oh, hey, how about now? How's it going? Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're doing well this evening. How about now, says Loki? I think you could improve the durability system considerably by just reducing the amount of weapons you can hoard and balancing accordingly. Yeah, so sort of like a compromise where the weapons do still feel like they're not invulnerable, but they're sturdy enough to take a little bit of a beating so that you keep them around a little bit longer. They feel a little bit more precious. I remember hearing somebody's review about how they got to the end of, like, a particularly challenging dungeon or something, and then the reward for it after, like, half an hour or whatnot of gameplay was a single shield. Or it's like at the top of the mountain, right? And they found a single shield, and then you can apparently, like, ride... I forget how to do it, but you can, like, ride your shield, right? Like a surfboard or skateboard. And they did that from the top of the mountain, and then when they got to the bottom of the mountain, the shield was completely destroyed. and it totally invalidated their feeling of progression. They felt like they didn't get anything out of doing the dungeon, and the quest itself wasn't fun enough. Like the challenge itself wasn't inherently fun enough to feel inherently rewarding. If that makes sense. So. Let's see. Shinigami says, I've been thinking a little bit about Itachi's intelligence. What do you think of his contingency to keep Obito away from Sasuke by putting a Matarasu in his eye? Yeah, I think, well, obviously it wasn't, it wasn't very effective. So I think it's interesting, or rather, I guess you could argue about its efficacy, right? Like, it clearly, was effective in that it surprised, Obito, and it probably like prompted him or motivated him or whatever to use. Well, some people think he used Kamui to get out of it. I like the idea that he used Izanagi because that means that like it was an even more costly decision or costly event, so to speak. So that increases the it makes it more impressive for Itachi to have pulled it off because he at least forced him to sacrifice one of his eyes. So I like that interpretation better. But I'm not sure which one is actually more accurate. I think that ultimately it it wasn't that effective, but it did. You know, Obito is definitely like one of the top tier characters in terms of influence and power in the series. At least until you get to like late. Well, even in the late war arc, he's still relevant. He just gets a stronger form, right? Um, but as a result, to be able to have that effect on a character like that is still an accomplishment. He managed to, Obito was the leader of the Akatsuki effectively. He was somebody who should have a lot of insight and knowledge, is one of the strongest Uchiha, and as a result, and he had like Madara's guidance and stuff. So you figure if Itachi is capable of pulling one over, if that's the expression, on even a character like that, then that's just a like a feat for Itachi's perspicacity. Is the right term? I'm trying to look for a word that means like intelligence, cleverness, threat level, whatever. I'm still, for whatever reason, not doing particularly well at the controls, and trying to figure out. That's not it. Okay. So is there not a hotkey for just like equip bow? That didn't do anything. Okay. Right, so there's the bombs. Do I have to equip the bows manually of all things? I guess so. I thought you could toggle between them, but I guess I don't recall how. I'll just go with the Bokobo. Oh, I see. So if I have this, then I can do... I see. Okay, that makes more sense now. That toggles my inputs. This is an interesting type of enemy for sure. Like the swarm functioning as its own kind of thing. 1 second. Okay, so if I go back here, all right. So this is how I switch between the sub menus. That makes sense. Okay, now things are starting to make sense. Also, I managed to find an old Pro controller from my Switch 1 and hook that back up. So now things are starting to click into place. 1 sec. Shinigami says, I know it sounds smart at first. Actually, 1 second. I'm going to try to move the chat window over so I can see it a bit better. Bear with me here. Okay, so, yeah, I think I can see this better now. Shinigami says, I've been thinking a little bit about Itachi's intelligence. Yeah, no, it sounds smarter first, but then the more I thought about it with the surrounding context, it doesn't feel like it's natural. Like, Itachi knew about Obito for long, and he regularly uses crows, so it was stopping him from using them to gain information of Kamui, especially since Obito spams it so much. That's true. He might have actually been able to do so. I don't know why he didn't think of that. Itachi knew about Obito for long. He regularly, yeah. What was stopping Itachi putting up an automatic genjutsu for Obito? He can shoot genjutsu from his finger. Well, I think if you read the, so I think that Itachi was genuine. This is debatable, but I think he was actually genuinely convinced that Obito was literally Madara, and I think that as a result, he probably, expected that his power. That he might not be able to beat him, right? Like, so if Madara's reputation is deserved, essentially, even if Itachi you know, could stand a chance against him, he specifically said to Sasuke that he, like, was planning on getting the EMS, the Eternal Mangekyo, because he felt it was going to be part of his um, process of then being able to surpass Madara. Like, I forget exactly what he said, but it was something like, you're going to be my new light, and then after that, I will have the ability to surpass Madara, something like that, right? So, I think that maybe he just didn't have a great sense of what his abilities were, and thought he could be, like, much stronger potentially, and so was being cautious. And also, like, the novels do expand a little bit on Itachi's relationship with Madara, in that, Itachi meets him. I think, actually, if I remember correctly, like, Itachi awakens his Mangekyo after being in a fight that Obito is a part of. And so, he's, like, basically, Obito is framed as his superior, his elder from the, well, obviously his elder, but then his superior as well from the get-go. And so I think, even though they don't consider themselves to be comrades, Itachi probably does have a certain amount of respect for his power and his competence. And as a result, would also be wary of a direct confrontation, I think. Hopefully that made some sense. Oh yeah, feel free to make as many puns as you like. I've just I was on Abstract's stream a couple of days ago, and people were talking about, like, rap battles, and so I started getting back into them. I used to, like, watch a lot of King of the Dot and Grind Time and stuff, and so I'm kind of interested in that, as if you want to call it, like, an art form or a form of competition or whatever. I do genuinely find that stuff interesting, but also just kind of realizing that a lot of battle rap is literally just dad jokes. Like, weaponized dad jokes, I guess is one way to put it. Oh shit, I need to get better about that. That didn't work either. Okay. Starting to get the hang of this, but it's gonna take me a little while. Stop with that. Fuck. Okay, I just gotta tap that, I see. Alright. Yeah. This makes some sense. It's just that for how much Itachi's hyped up for his intelligence makes me think about it. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's totally a fair thing to consider. So another thing that I wanted to at least consider is how effective are these bandit camps? Like, what exactly are we, like, learning or getting out of engaging with these camps? And personally, like, when I play games within a certain genre, I tend to inevitably compare them to other games in the same genre. And I like to ask, okay, what does this game that we are coming across now, if anything, what does it do to expand on the things that have already been established by the genre? Like, how is it innovating? What kind of, in what way, if at all, is it, like, contributing to the conversation about this kind of game in general? Because I do feel like there's always a bit of a conversation going on between game developers and their players, and just developers each other as well, where if you put a game out there into the world, you are inevitably, like, people are going to respond to it, other developers are going to respond to it, if you're lucky enough that they pay attention and that they play it. And then that, if it has any kind of influence whatsoever, is probably going to inform their own design decisions, right? Like, they are going to learn from it, from your mistakes, as well as your successes, hopefully. And so when you put all that together, you can consider any game that you make to be part of this ongoing, like, back and forth conversation that you're sharing with everybody else in the industry. So what does any particular game contribute to that conversation? How does the developer, like, how do they see their role in that conversation, and what do they want to get out of that exchange with other developers? That sort of stuff is really interesting to me, because I feel like, one way or another, if you're making a piece of art, whatever that piece of art may be, you are communicating something to others, both to your audience and to fellow artists, and that communication, that dialogue, is something that I find really, really interesting. So, what are they trying to tell us with the bandit camps, and how do those bandit camps compare to games like Far Cry 3, or I guess I should just say like the Far Cry series in general, right? But oh wow, there's a literal double rainbow. That's so fucking cool. Um, Personally, comparing the bandit camps to other games, even stuff like in Elden Ring, where they don't have the most advanced examples of bandit camps, I do find them a little bit lacking. They seem like relatively minor obstacles in the way, as opposed to genuinely feeling like these, you know, like like puzzles that you're actively solving. With Far Cry 3, like we talked about before, there are many instances where like that wasn't very effective at all, was it? There are plenty of instances where like you will have an option to hi, fuck. Um, you'll have an option to one sec to like approach a bandit camp as like you can go all out with a heavy machine gun. You can like basically snipe from a distance. You can do everything in between. Like you can sometimes there'll be hostages that you can break out and they'll help you out and stuff like that. Right. So it really depends on how you want to run things, and every individual place kind of functions like its own little puzzle. And I really like that. And I don't necessarily remember that being as much the case for this game. It more felt like they were like loot. Oh, wrong thing. Like loot camps or whatever, if that makes sense. Like essentially, they were there to give you something interesting, I guess, as like a little bit of a break in your trials. One sec. Why am I failing at this? That's why I don't know. Oh, for fuck's sake! I didn't know it hurt that much. Okay. But yeah, it's more of just like a little break in the action, or action to break up the exploration rather, than a genuinely like thoroughly crafted puzzle in and of itself. But anyway, I might not be being fair. Going back up, Shinigami says again, I think Shikamaru is the best written. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, the best written out of all the characters, or just the best written out of like the intelligence-based characters? Not sure if my standards for Itachi are being high or something compared to most other characters like Light Yagami. Why is that so hard to say? um, but I wonder if the conversation went like, let's put enemies to make you feel alive in the player's house in moments of combat. I think that's probably what they did, right? It feels like more of a utilitarian choice a lot of the times, where it's like, well, we need to have something here, right? And as a result, we need to make sure that there's some kind of variety, some kind of reinforcement that's happening. And that's not a bad thing by any means. But it's also one of those things where it's like, are we doing like, how can I explain? I think it's a tough balance, right? To make sure that any given inclusion in the game feels like it's purposeful and deliberate and meaningful and interesting without feeling too overwhelming, because you want to keep the overall like flow of combat going, obviously, or overall like flow of exploring the world and stuff like that going, and not get in the player's way. So there's an argument to be made for, not spending too much time with things like bandit camps, because if it's just gonna like, if every time the player sees one of those things, they're like, oh shit, this is gonna take me all day. And really what you want your players to do is just like immerse themselves in the game world and keep exploring and just feel like they're, inhabiting the world and stuff like that, then okay, maybe that's not totally in line with your goals. And so what might, to some interpretations, feel like something that's kind of shallow or whatever, might actually be deliberately designed to be simple. Simple is not necessarily stupid, right? Simple is not necessarily boring. Simple can absolutely be a deliberate choice that is part of the overall experience and is very essential, I guess, is one way to put it. Oh, whoop, that didn't work. I can do this. Okay. I like the fact that like these enemies are they feel like they're a bit beyond me, so to speak, at this point. But also, the game is letting me kind of figure it out and giving me the opportunity to to make risky plays. I will say this is the sort of thing where um, in a game like Elden Ring, for example, I'm gonna try not to compare this to Elden Ring for the entire stream, but I could see there being a mini boss here, right? Like, this is the sort of thing where it's like, this is a major landmark, and this kind of dovetails with some of my issues with the game before. Like, it's cool that we got a spear and stuff like that, but I mean, look, this is a massive major landmark. It's obviously a very significant place. It's at the juncture of multiple different biomes, and the storytelling though that happens here is that, I mean, there's some lizards, there's a chest, like there's a little bit of storytelling. There's this like caravan that broke down, or this wagon that broke down rather. There's a little bit going on here, but this is like, compare this to like the High Wall of Lothric, and you go down and you find the fucking asylum demon in Dark Souls 3, and it's all like crusty and it's like spewing up boulders instead of fire or whatever, and you know, it's like you get a little bit of tidbit of lore that it's guarding the gate. What does that mean? Was it resurrected? Did it survive all this time? You have this story, like this sort of like implicit narrative that happens over the fight where it starts to crumble and fall apart, and then that's tied into the overall story about Lothric itself. There's just so much going on in that one little encounter, and it's just like a shitty little part of a bridge. And I feel like this is a pretty massive bridge. It's a pretty massive centerpiece. It's probably going to be one of the more eye-catching things you see when you leave the Great Plateau. So why not have this be more of a major set piece? You know, like, I feel like there should be something else here. It feels a little barren, for lack of a better word. Cute. Yeah, let me catch up on chat real quick. So let's see. It's pretty abstract considering how many people would be involved for a game like this. Yeah, that's fair. There's probably, well, definitely multiple hundreds of people that contributed to this game for sure, right? Oh, excuse me. I'm very tired. I haven't been getting as much sleep as I should. Shinigami says, I wonder if the conversation went like, let's put enemies to make it feel alive. Oh yeah, that was a good point as well. Since the concern would be that the world would feel empty. Well, that was my big concern when I first saw the trailers for this game, right? Is that like so much of the world does feel kind of empty, kind of barren. And I was just like, you know, the Zelda games that I have played that I particularly love tend to have areas that are extremely well, like are very dense in a certain sense, and are very tightly constructed and purposefully or deliberately constructed, I guess is one way to put it. So I was like, I don't think the open world format really works for a Zelda game. Intuitively, it feels like this will be very, very difficult to pull off while still keeping the overall like identity of what makes a Zelda game intact. And the solution or the compromise, I think, was going to be, you know, just making sure that there were still some dungeons that retained that, oh cool, that traditional Zelda feel. And unfortunately, I don't think the dungeons in this game really succeeded in that regard. I will say, though, that, again, like, I promise that the purpose of the stream is not just to slander, you know, Zelda games in favor of my beloved Dark Souls, or, like, From Software titles. But at the same time, I do feel like Elden Ring, it feels like they were paying, like, part of that conversation, right? That they were paying pretty close attention to what this game was doing and what it did and didn't do well. And it felt like they really wanted to reassure players, okay, we know that you like the tight-knit, intricately constructed, interwoven dungeons of our game, and those are very important to you, and we get that. And not only are we going to make sure to include those in this game, but we're also going to make some of them that are in the game the best, the most expansive, the most layered of any in the entire series, in the entire like pantheon of games that we've ever made. And I think that like you just look at something like the first was it like Stormvale, the first castle in Elden Ring. It compares favorably to like pretty much any um, any single level, maybe even multiple levels. Like when you compare it to the complexity of something like An Orlando, for example, it feels bigger and more like tightly constructed, and like it's got more going on than something like An Orlando even, right? So can I not pick that up? That would be cool. Oh, magnesis is only for metal things, right? Oh shit. Um, so I think they must have looked at this game, at least this is how it seems to me, and been like, okay, well, a common concern here was that um, the open world stuff came at the expense, so to speak, of the legacy dungeons and the traditional format. Um, Joseph Anderson's review that I found quite compelling, the title was Not Enough Zelda, right? So there is so much in this game that is beautiful and masterfully executed and wonderful in and of itself. But when it comes to being a Zelda game, is it Zelda enough? And what does that even mean, right? So my if you were to consider this game a response, or Elden Ring a response to this game, or part of the same conversation, I think the way that Elden Ring contributes to the conversation is by saying, how do we expand and innovate while also making sure not only to retain the things that made our players fall in love with our title initially, but to expand and deepen those as well, not to make a trade-off, right? It's actually kind of crazy when you think about how well Elden Ring succeeded at that. Like, it shouldn't be possible. The game, I guess, like at the very end of it, it does feel pretty compromised, right? Like there are parts of the like. I don't even think really that the consecrated snowfield needs to exist. Like, there's definitely some fun stuff up there, but also the worst stuff in the game to me is like finding Astel 2.0 in the snowfield, or just like, here's another dragon, here's another death bird, here's another fucking. I mean, the walking mausoleum with the artillery was pretty cool, but at the end of the day, I feel like they could have maybe halved the size of that, especially since Far Missoula, which is one of the best areas in the game, comes right after that. Um, and it's one of those cases where like less is more, right? Like if you didn't put another Estelle in the game, I never would have. Like the inclusion of the second Estelle to me like cheapens the existence of the first one. I think Joseph Anderson as well, or somebody like Joseph Anderson or maybe Artsy pointed out that like if you found a second, oh no, come on, that was so stupid. If you found a second Melania who just had like green skin and red, not red hair, like black hair, right? And she was called Melania Pointy Stick of Mikola as opposed to Blade, right? It's like that's gonna make the first Melania feel worse. So it's better off to not have it at all. Um, but apart from that, it's kind of telling that my biggest complaint with Elden Ring is that there's too much of it, um, and the stuff that's there leading up to that part is genuinely so great that it's like it's definitely forgivable, for lack of a better word. Um, Let me catch up on chat real quick. Shinigami says, I know whenever people try to do open world and don't execute it well, we have an empty world without much to do. Very true. The intelligent characters among Naruto included the glazed ones like Sasuke, who became the hex merchant to me as times passed. Yeah, I think like he definitely got like so many kind of broken abilities, not exactly handed to him, like he had to absolutely work for it. And if you're gonna argue that anybody had anything handed to him, I mean like Naruto. Well, I didn't want to like start a whole thing about like if Naruto's a prodigy or if he was an underdog or whatever. I don't want to dig that whole argument up again, but I will say that like cool, he had the most powerful Bichu in him as a kid. He had to work to maintain it and to activate it and to befriend it. Like that was a genuine feat for him, but he had access to that inside him, which is a major advantage if he could figure out how to control it. He was the son of the fourth Hokage, get to train with one of the literal Sanin, etc. Right? Sasuke though gets to train with one of those same Sanin, and also gets like the curse mark and just benefits from all of the crazy training and modifications and things that Orochimaru gives him access to, like all the hacks there. They both wind up having unorthodox but extremely accelerated like paths to success and to advancement and all that. Oh my God, Rio. Hi, how you doing? Um, I mean, like, yeah, Denji doesn't even really have many intelligence feats beyond like a couple of quirky moments, but even so, um, yeah, in any contest, I'm giving it to Denji. Hope you're doing well, by the way. Hacks merge it in the sense that his hacks. Oh wait, hang on, I missed a couple of messages. It's crazy to hear that because most people who think A Link to the Past is over Ocarina of Time or modern Zelda in general all the time we're gushing over the fact of the Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I think that. Oh wow, it's huge. I think that part of the reason why is that people said at the time when Breath of the Wild came out. Says reacts. Oh, cool. Uh, with Y on the map screen, nice. Yeah, so I think that part of the reason why people really loved Breath of the Wild when it came out, or maybe not like the reason why or whatever, um, but I think, sorry, I keep getting distracted by stuff on screen. What I wanted to say was that when this game came out, a lot of the praise that I saw coming out for it, especially from people like video game reviewers, was that it brought so much freshness and innovation to the series, and they kept saying stuff like, honestly, man, the Zelda franchise has been stagnant for a while. The Zelda formula really needed a kick, like a kickstart. Like the Zelda formula, man, this formula is just so stale and so outdated and blah blah. The formula that, for fuck's sake, come on, press the wrong button. The formula this, the formula that. I don't know, man. Like I never got tired of the Zelda formula. It's funny because now I think I'm kind of like getting a little bit tired of the From Software formula. Uh, in that I will still gladly like pre-order and devour any From Software game that comes out. But also, like I think I mentioned before on stream, I would really like it if they, innovated a bit in the RPG department. A lot of the only way that you can really interact with stuff in that game, apart from a few conversations with a few people, like a few minor decisions here or there, is basically just like decide to kill this thing or decide to kill this thing later. There isn't really all that much innovation, player expressiveness or whatever beyond that, right? It's kind of limited. And if you compare that to something like Baldur's Gate, obviously Baldur's Gate is like the complete other end of the spectrum, right? Where it's there is so much depth to how you can express your characters. Fallout New Vegas is another example of that. Whereas most of the expressiveness in Elden Ring comes from, the choices that you make in terms of like order of events, like what you explore first, where you go first, and then how you build and spec out your character. Um, but there isn't as much in the way of like, the traditional sense of role playing, like traditional role playing games, if that makes sense. One sec. Can I actually do this? Yeah, cool. I like the fact that I didn't have to like specifically have a pickaxe or whatever. That's great. So I would like to see them innovate on that. But also, like, when I go back and play, I was trying to go back and replay the Elden Ring DLC, and I went through the process of, like, going through most of the main game to get ready for it, so to speak. And at the end of that, I just kind of felt like there's not really... There's only so many hundreds of hours you could spend just, like, hitting stuff with swords and spells. Like, after a while, you're kind of just doing the same thing, right? Like, Elden Ring, wound up being still wound up being worth spending hundreds of hours on because in addition to all the different builds you have, there are inevitably going to be things about the lore, about the world that you just don't pick up on your first, second, even third, fourth, fifth playthrough. So there's always more to discover. But also the majority, like the vast majority of the time that you spend in a game like that is just killing stuff. There's not really much else going on. And if you're looking for more variety, then there's just not a whole lot to be found there. And, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You might actually prefer that kind of experience. One second, I want to turn this shit off. How do I do this? Sheikah sensor. Yeah, there we go. No. Select. Off. Excellent. Okay. So yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing at all. It could be considered like an asset, right? But at the same time, it's also like, oh, hi horses. Um, no, don't hurt me. It's also like potentially limiting, and so all of this is just to say that like I like a good solid formula, but also I can understand why even like my favorite franchises that I adore, I'm getting tired of. So I definitely can sympathize. Not getting tired of, but like I'm starting to see the limitations of the lifespan, so to speak. And so I can definitely understand people being fatigued with Zelda. But the thing with Zelda is that like a Zelda game would come out, I would play it for like, you know, somewhere between 20 or 60 hours, and then I would be done with that game, and I would move on to other things. And then by the time the next one came out, or by the time I wanted to revisit an older one, I wouldn't necessarily. It wouldn't feel like it had been taken up so much of my consciousness. It was like so fresh in my mind that it felt like I was just retreading old ground. For the most part, there's definitely like I really don't need another game with a fucking hook shot that then upgrades into a long shot, right? Twilight Princess did something similar where it was a bit more forgivable because it was like the single claw shot versus the you know, the double claw shot that does feel distinct rather than just like having something and then having the same thing getting longer. But you know, the progression of items winds up feeling relatively similar throughout a lot of the games where okay, you get like maybe one new item with new applications, and then you get a bow, and then you get something, then you get like a bomb, then you get something that like increases your strength, or is basically just like a key that like doesn't have a whole lot of combat utility but like helps you move stuff or get stuff out of the way, right? And so there are elements of the formula that do kind of get stale and need innovation on. But at the same time, like I was never like, yeah, I please give me few like I'm tired of things like the Spirit Temple and the Shadow Temple. I'm tired of stuff like the Forest Temple. I'm tired of, you know, the Twilight Realm in Twilight Princess. I'm tired of like that's not the stuff I'm tired of. I'm tired of like dungeons with interesting puzzles and cool contraptions and stuff. Like all of the temples in Twilight Princess were fucking awesome to my recollection. Maybe not the one where you have to walk really, really slowly over the magnetized flooring, but even that was like an innovation on the iron boots, which was welcome. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't sympathize with that at all. I didn't really feel like the game was getting to the point where it needed a change in the formula. And I think that being said, apparently I was in the minority because that was one of the things that a lot of people really, really liked about this game is that it totally changed the paradigm. It totally switched things up, and oh, good puppy. And that's what they loved about it. So I'm okay being in the minority. I just wish that they had done what Elden Ring did and managed to strike a little bit more of a balance, if that makes sense. I'm actually gonna let me like get a room for the night and then catch up on chat real quick. Let's do the soft bed. Okay. So let's see. Your friend is telling you to sleep now. Hope I don't leave anything behind. What's up for you to be alone? Oh, no worries, dude. A lot of times, you know, sometimes quite a few people will show up. Sometimes not a lot of people will. I love chatting with people, but I also love just zoning out and enjoying the game. So if you don't happen to be here, I'll just keep babbling. No worries, no pressure. I appreciate any time you want to spend, but also I know you got a lot going on, so please feel free to leave whenever. No, there's never any pressure to stay. Yeah, let me catch up real quick though before I get back into the game. Pax Merchant, yep. Rioman says, but it's very, very kind of you. Very, very nice sentiment. I do appreciate that. Denji is pretty smart. His feat against Makima is good. I do think that he has moments where he has like a certain kind of brilliance. I think it's more, it's not that he's stupid. It's more that he's just kind of boneheaded and doesn't really bother to think things through critically and lets himself get pushed around quite a bit. But that's, you know, a good part of his character, I think. My favorite thing, I don't want to spoil it, but my favorite thing in the series so far was just the aquarium thing. I did not see that coming at all, and I fucking loved that moment. That was so great with Yoru, or whatever her name is, right? That was awesome. Makima's underrated. Maybe not let Yagami Tear as a manipulator. Oh yeah. I think that she should definitely get recognition for how like what she does and how she manages to pull it off. I did not see that twist coming, and again, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's not caught up, but like the birthday cake thing, if you know, you know what I'm talking about, right? I didn't see that coming. Like I didn't believe it. Like I was like, okay, they're gonna retcon this, they're gonna undo this, but they committed to it for the most part, and I was like, oh shit, things really changed, right? And then I started to respect the series a lot more after that, because I was like, there are real stakes here. They're not going to do the Eren Yeager thing where it's like, you know, oh, we actually totally really killed the protagonist, guys. Like, he's totally dead, never coming back. And then he immediately comes back, right? So, yeah, I like what they did there. I'm still a little heartbroken about the aftermath of that thing. That was a heartbreaking scene, and it affected one of my like probably my favorite character. So you know, it was kind of saddening, but also I respect it. I really respect it. Let's see. Ryoman says she's very insane overlooked feats because you need to pay attention to details to notice them. She planned a lot of events that 99% of people miss. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and really like. Oh, that's cool. It does give me like an extra little bonus heart there. Should I read this? Oh no, thank you. I feel like the EX stuff has been like a major distraction, unfortunately. Oh, Beetle left. Fuck's sake. I wanted to. Oh no, there he is. Okay. Let's see. Oh, interesting. When cooked with monster parts, the compound causes it to glow. Oh. Results in an elixir. That's kind of cool, yeah. Hardy lizard. Temporarily increases maximum hearts. Octoballoon. Oh, yeah, I remember that. I think I'm gonna get a couple of these, yeah. Okay, one sec. I'm really bad at, like, shit. I'm really bad at multitasking when I'm in menus, so just give me 1 second. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I can actually sell a lot of this crap if I don't wind up needing it. That's good. I don't have to just sell my like the rupees or whatever, the not the rupees, the opals, the gemstones, stuff like that, which I don't even not even seeing them anymore. Yeah, like I find that sort of thing pretty distracting, the Nintendo shirt and whatnot. Yeah, okay, I guess I will move on for now. Oh, you're going? Good night. Hope you have a great night. Take care. Good luck preparing for everything. Let's see. Ryoman says she has a very insane overlook feat. You plan a lot. Yeah, so like Ryoman, I was genuinely surprised that you like were low-key slandering Chainsaw Man because I thought you were kind of a fan of the series. Can you just remind me? Maybe we talked about it before, but I would be curious to hear more about what you actually think of the series, if that makes sense. Oh, what the hell? Why can't I cook? 1 sec. Do I need to light the fire? Probably, right? Okay. Wait, what is that noise? Okay, well, good luck out there. Well, that's the thing. I do wish that there was a more reliable way of making fire, because I feel like, okay, I can make... Is there another fire around here that I can just, like, use with my torch? 1 sec. I really don't care about the side quests at all. There's fire in that lamp, but I don't think that's going to work. Can I swipe this? No, okay. So I'm probably gonna need some actual, like, flint and tinder. Hi. Region full of monsters quite dangerous. Okay. Yeah, sorry, let me this game is really hard to multitask with, more so than any other game I played recently. I don't know why. So let me just focus on chat for a second. Yeah, I would be genuinely curious to know, like, what you actually think of the series, because sometimes it's, no offense, it's kind of hard to see if you're trolling or if I'm, like, missing an in-joke. So yeah, what do you actually think about it? Light is better, light is very underrated. Yeah, that'd be interesting to hear about, too. Aizen victims, maybe. Loses to both, probably. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to have to get around to reading Bleach. I will say that I really was not able to connect with the the fucking JJK manga. I got up to chapter like 60 or something, and I just like was not into it. But I started watching the anime, and I'm really actually enjoying it quite a bit. So I think I'll just follow the anime. I don't know what it is about the anime that's just clicking with me more. Something about the storytelling of the manga though was like just not hitting it for me. Um, so let's see. Interesting. Oh, How About No says interesting regarding RPGs is that both the CRPG and more scripted JRPGs trace back to D&D mechanically. Yeah, that makes sense. However, in Japan, published stories of campaigns and actual plays overshadowed the game itself, huh? So the target audience for RPGs wasn't necessarily TTRPG players as much as, say, somebody who read slash watched Lodos War and wanted to replicate it, allegedly, maybe. So, is Lodos War something that's less, that has less of the like character expressiveness and I don't know. I never know what the right term for it is, but like being able to pass speech checks versus stealth checks versus like if you ally with one faction you lock yourself out of another faction. That's the sort of stuff I mean when I refer to like traditional or like hardcore role playing or whatever. As opposed to a game like Elden Ring, I don't think counts as a role playing game, right? You can call it an action RPG if you like, that would be okay, but in terms of those traditional like CRPG inspired elements, there's really nothing there apart from okay, yeah, you can choose to ally yourself with Ronnie, um, or not, right? Like there's a couple of choices like that. You can choose to kill NPCs. Well, it's like if you choose to join up with Moog, for example, right? It's not like going through the world and like being bloodthirsty and just killing a bunch of random people and racking up blood is really going to affect Moog as a person at all, or like deepen your connection to Mikola. Like you can't water the Halig tree with blood or anything like that. Like there's nothing you can really do. Everything's kind of fixed in place. Um, there's only a very few minor things that you can actually affect in that way, if that makes sense. So I don't know. Um, Lodos War is somebody's D&D campaign transcript that was published in a magazine, then turned into a series of novels. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. I wasn't aware of that. Although I've been blessed by the algorithm recently, and I've been getting a bunch of recommendations for like classic anime that I really need to check out. Let me see if I have them on my notes here. Um, so of course now I have all this stuff about like fucking modal realism. I'm sure I'm gonna complain to you guys about that pretty soon. But let me see, because I wanted to pass along the recommendation as well. Oh yeah, so like come on, Queen Emeraldus. I saw some animation from that series that looked fucking awesome. Um, it was part of a series called like Unique Weapons in Anime or something like that. It was really cool. I know I'm gonna mispronounce this, but Escaflowne, that also looked really awesome. Like just visually speaking. Let's see if I have anything else here on my list. Uh, Tekaman Blade was another one that came up. The animation looked sick. Just all of these really intricate, really beautiful. Oh yeah, and then Angel's Egg. Like it's obviously a very different kind of thing, but I've been meaning to watch that forever since like Demolition D Plus. If you remember, that guy recommended it in one of his videos. But yeah. JJK is slop. Oh come on, it's not that bad. The manga itself is like kind of confusing and disjointed, and I think it has a lot of, if you read Berserk, Chestnut Puck, in the second part of the story, like after the major thing with Griffith happens, uh, he winds up showing off like up a lot, and it's basically like a version of Puck that's constantly making puns and jokes and breaking the fourth wall and stuff like that. Like I feel like there's a lot of moments like that in JJK, um, where characters will just kind of like be rendered in a joke gag sort of way. I guess it's more like early Dragon Ball, right? Where there was a lot more like jokey stuff going on. Maybe even early Naruto, but Naruto is more serious overall. And like I like humor, don't get me wrong, but there's also something about the way that the characters wind up getting portrayed and how readily they keep switching between serious mode and like chibi fucking jokey gag anime mode that I found like very distracting after a while, and just difficult for my brain to follow. like they would go back and forth between being like, hey, this is a major issue and we are in serious danger here, and we need to seriously watch out because we're going to die. And then the very next panel would be like, just like a character in Mega Man, right? And then somebody would make like a little joke, and there'd be a panel where the characters are rendered in like a completely different art style. After a while, that just kind of got to me, and I was like, it's hard to kind of get immersed in this. And they do that in the anime too, but I think for some reason the way that it's paced and the overall like the art is more consistent in the anime. The visuals are more consistently, like the quality is more consistent. And so I feel like when they do that stuff, at least it's visually still quite interesting, and the pacing is more consistent, so it's a little bit easier to stomach, if that makes sense. Not that it's like terrible or shitty or anything, but it's like it's easier to kind of get into it without feeling like it's breaking the flow of everything, which I do unfortunately kind of feel happens too often in the manga. Hopefully that seems fair. But yeah, so Denji prefers to follow other people without thinking too much for himself and complicated stuff due to fear more than stupidity. Yeah, I think there's a lot more that goes. It's not that he is stupid per se. I think it's just that he's a little bit like thick-headed, like a little bit dense sometimes, and he doesn't really think things through. But that seems to me to be more like a detachment. Like you're saying, there's something a little bit more complex, a little bit more intricate, and empathetic. Empathy-inducing, I guess is one way to put it, as opposed to just being stupid. It's more about like his overall backstory and perspective and stuff like that, right? In the same way that like I think it would be pretty callous and pretty stupid to describe him as being like simple-minded because he likes very simple food or something like that, right? Like, or he appreciates the simple things in life because, or he appreciates things that like we might consider to be very, very basic, to a much greater extent because he just hasn't had the privilege of having access to that stuff for a lot of his life, right? So that was actually something that I guess you could say I struggled with, for lack of a better phrase, at the beginning. Like, I was pretty skeptical of the series overall at first because I thought Denji's motivation was like really kind of immature, and I made the mistake, like just wanting to fondle some boobs or whatever, and I made the mistake of thinking that that meant that the series itself was immature, and I guess you could argue that it was. I was having this conversation with my partner the other day, but at the same time, it's more of a starting point for his overall like character growth and development and eventual maturity, right? So the fact that he starts off with having such a simple and maybe like a little bit cringy, a little bit immature, like horny, like teenager sort of attitude, winds up becoming a part of his character that gets explored in a more interesting and nuanced way. And that starts as early as his first interaction with power, that he then winds up talking to Makima about and being like, I had this thing that I wanted so badly, and then I have it, and now I feel empty. Like, I don't feel like all that much more fulfilled or anything like I thought I was going to. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe still not the most, like, erudite or, like, advanced fucking notion under the sun, but there's still a lot more to it than I think I gave initial credit for. Let's see. Rioman says, I absolutely hate Chainsaw Man. Really? That's really interesting. Oh wait, hang on. Aaron manipulated the smartest person in his verse. Who would you say is the smartest person? Are you saying like Arumin is, would you give him that title, so to speak? You absolutely hate Chainsaw Man. You hate Denji, Power, Asa, and Reza. Chainsaw Man ended a few days ago and people call it the worst ending. Okay, please don't spoil it for me though, because I'm still like, very much catching up and I want to know, like I don't want to know what happens. I'm a little skeptical of the idea that you're never trolling. I think you do engage in some light trolling from time to time, but that's okay. We can we don't mind a little good-natured trolling from time to time on this channel. But that being said, yeah, if you want to go ahead and Zeke, interesting. Okay. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm gonna have to give that some thought. Feel free to elaborate if you want to share why you think he's the smartest. I would have said maybe Yeah, I mean, I think the intuitive answer is Armin, but that's maybe you're thinking of that more in terms of his like tactical intelligence as opposed to his ability to like manipulate and plan ahead and all that stuff. Um, I suppose, or do you mean in terms of like wisdom and perception and stuff like that? Um, Either way, be curious to hear you talk more about it if you like. Let's see. Yeah, but like I don't understand why, or not to sound like too skeptical about it or whatever. Um, I guess I'm just surprised to hear that you hate Chainsaw Man. Like, could definitely. Okay, I'm gonna have something to say about that. That was a cool moment. Um, I definitely don't expect anybody to love it necessarily, but at the same time, um, I think it's a decent quality show, right? I'm surprised to hear such an emphatic response about it. Um, yeah, let me know what you think. How about No says Lodos War? Oh yeah, was somebody's D&D campaign transcript? Okay. And then how about No says I do think that JJK anime improves upon the manga in terms of like direction, visual storytelling, etc. As the manga went on, it relied more and more on just blank page with text. Yeah, and I was initially very impressed with the art style in JJK, uh, but then I noticed that the same thing kind of happened with JJK as did with Chainsaw Man to my perception, is that the quality kind of became extremely sketchy. Like it reminded me of the like not skeevy, right? It looked like things were getting sketched as opposed to fully realized, if that makes sense a lot of the time. And it reminded me of like War Arc Naruto, where I think that Kishimoto just didn't have the time, the energy, the resources, or whatever to really draw stuff the way with the level of detail that he used to. And I remember, like, if you know the YouTuber Super Eye Patch Wolf, he has a video called like Naruto: A Series of Highs and Lows, and he kind of delves into that and explains like the fall off that happened in the art over time. And I do kind of agree with his take there, and I think it is probably a byproduct of like, you know, Kishimoto lasted hundreds of chapters before you, at least in my opinion, start to notice a real like fall off in the quality of his work for a while. And honestly, it's only once you get to the war arc that it's really pronounced. Even though there's a style shift between part one and part two, there's still a lot of like genuinely impressive art there that's of a consistent quality. But I felt like I noticed that fall off like much earlier in JJK and in fucking Chainsaw Man as well. But the anime, even though I think the anime does cut a lot of corners and there's stuff about it that I don't like in terms of its visuals, it is still like the combination of the overall more consistent, more refined visuals plus the acting, the soundtrack, the visuals, the animation. There's more that is there as like eye candy, so to speak, and ear candy, so that even if I don't particularly love a particular story beat or character interaction, or even if I find that the humor is not to my style, it breaks immersion or whatever, I still feel like overall there's more there for me to enjoy as an audience member um, than like any given episode versus any given chapter of the manga. There's just more there for me to like sit back and enjoy in the anime, and so I'm able to stick with it better. I hope that makes sense. I feel bad because like obviously the creator is like very has put a lot of like work and love and care and craft into designing his world. I don't think that the mistakes that he has made or his team have made not even mistakes, just the things that I bounce off of are the result of laziness or anything malicious. But and so it's kind of it kind of feels shitty, especially since I'm now like, hmm? Oh, I guess I have to get a Korok leaf and ride the wind or something. Um, it feels kind of. Oh, hang on. I don't need a Korok leaf. I've got this. One second. Except that's not going to help. Clearly, I need to do something else here. Oh, does it want me to just like reach the other side within the time frame? And that's the clock essentially. I might try. Now I bet I have to like fly through it, in which case I'll need to come back here later. That's fine. I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, so like I mentioned before, I'm working on a remake now, as part of my job in the games industry, and I have really mixed feelings about it because I think once the game comes out, I think it will like it's a remake of a pretty old game, and I think that people who would have wow, that ticking is fucking annoying. Um, I People who would not have given the game a chance because it's too old and the graphics are too bad and outdated or whatever, they'll pick it up and I think they'll enjoy it. And so I think, from a standpoint of like just reintroducing the game to a new generation of gamers and giving it another chance and bringing it back into the current like modern dialogue of game design. Horse God Bridge, that's a cool name. Um, I think it's definitely. I feel good about contributing to that part of it, if that makes sense. That being said, also, it's inevitable that like we are benefiting from the very hard work, and innovation and talent of other people that have come before us. And the only reason why we are employed on this project is because other people took the risk to make the game in the first place and to, um, you know, make the design decisions they did, make the aesthetic decisions they did. And I think a lot of the way that our creative direction, like the higher ups, so to speak, on the project, have approached the design of the game is to consider the original's limitations to be a mistake, right? So if they come across a like a building and the building looks really uh, barren and forlorn and kind of like worn down, you know, their interpretation of that would be something along the lines of, well, the original dev team probably didn't have the resources to really make it look beautiful, and so now we can make it look as beautiful as they wanted to, and they'll point to like some concept art that justifies their position, and they'll be like, look, in this concept art, they initially wanted the game to look prettier than it does, so we're just restoring their initial vision. I think something like that happened with one of the Zelda remakes too, right? Where like the initial game, maybe it was the Ocarina 3D remake, where the initial game, like its initial concept art was very, very colorful and bright and vibrant, but the game itself, when it came out, wound up being a very kind of dark and drab and dreary by comparison. And so when they remade it, they were like, okay, clearly this was a result of like the limited colors and the graphical limitations of the time and stuff like that. So let's restore it to its original vision. But the problem is that regardless of what the original like concept of the game was, once it comes out, it takes on an identity of its own, right? Like we can talk about death of the author. That's not exactly what I'm talking about here, but it's something similar, right? Where like the uh, the game does kind of take on an identity of its own. It winds up telling a story, whether or not that story was what you expected it to tell, and then that story has significance and meaning to people. And to kind of accuse it of telling the wrong story is pretty lame. And to consider the fucking hell, consider the elements of the storytelling that wound up defining the art for what it is, and what it meant to people as being a mistake, I think is pretty lame as well. So I guess all this is just to say that I do kind of feel guilty that the version of the story that I'm considering better is a derivative work made by another team rather than the original work, because I'm very sensitive to like what it must do. For fuck's sake, thought I was being smart. I'm very sensitive to feeling like I'm contributing to that in a negative way. Like, I, I do think that overall the game that I'm working on will be more beneficial than not, because like maybe this is me just coping or whatever, but I do think that like the if you try to do the math and compare like the number of people who are probably going to play it for the first time and get a chance to experience it at least in some form, even if it's not the original or ideal form or whatever, it's probably better that it exists versus not existing at all. Okay, well, fuck's sake, I'm giving up on this. But at the same time, it's like, you know, it sucks because here's a great example: Silent Hill 2 remake. I think we've talked about that on stream before. I think Realman, you and we talked about that specifically, right? Silent Hill 2 remake, I think, is an excellent project. I think as a technical achievement, as a work of like fans trying to iterate on and to preserve and to, you know, try to modernize an old work, I think it is very well done. Modernizing a game like that is a very, very difficult task, but I think that they pulled it off in a pretty good way. And also, unfortunately, they decided to oh, and also to give them some more credit, right? They how the fuck do I put a pin here? Yeah. Okay. Um Also, to be fair, like, they brought a lot of new stuff to the table. It wasn't just a straight up remake. Like, they expanded every level, they expanded combat, they, you know, they did a lot of stuff where it was sort of inherently risky as well. They took risks, they kind of struck out and really tried to do something that was meaningful, and I think they succeeded. The problem is that Silent Hill 2, that game with that identity, that name, now has two incarnations, right? If you go look up the video game Silent Hill 2, there are now two games with that name. And given that Konami is making absolutely zero fucking effort to make the game accessible or even like remotely accessible, remotely available for people who want to play the original, like there's basically no legit way to play it. You have to pirate it or you have to like have somebody who has a copy who can lend it to you and let you like make an ISO of it or whatever. Um, I don't think that there's any way to purchase a legitimate copy except for the awful like HD collection, which I do not consider an acceptable way to play the game. So now, like, it there's basically been a bit of an erasure of the art happening. Like, very few people who want to experience this thing that they've heard about this amazing legendary game called Silent Hill 2. It's supposed to be one of the greatest game narratives ever, one of the greatest horror games ever. If they want to go play something called Silent Hill 2, they're going to play the remake. Like, um, it's your average gamer is probably not going to spend all the extra time going out of their way. Like, I admit that I used to use like torrent sites and stuff. I wouldn't even know how to get started. It's been like 10 years since I've done anything like that. Basically, once I was able to actually afford games, I started buying all the games that I play. Oh, that looks really fucking cool. So, you know, I wouldn't even know where to get a game like that from a less than legitimate source, right? So now we're just in a shitty situation where essentially the new art has supplanted the old art, and that fucking sucks. It feels very disrespectful to the original artists. And granted, that is absolutely 100% not Bloober Team's fault. Whatever misgivings I have about some of the ways that they handle their subject matter and like some of the things that have come out about them as a company, I'm not a like stan for them as a company by any means. But at the same time, you know, I can say that while still respecting their technical accomplishments and the things that they pulled off overall on that project. But still, like, through no fault of their own, fucking Konami has made them complicit in the erasure of the art that led to them even being able to make that project at all, right? So it's just really unfortunate. Melania. Melania in a giant flower? Coincidence? Not a flower specifically. More like a floral growth thing. Plant. Okay. This is not suspicious at all, of course. Okay. This is one of those things where I would actually like a warp point. Well, let's see. Um, can I place... Yeah. So that's cool. I like the fact that oh, free frog. I like the fact that I just found this thing while I was wandering around on my own. It's something that could very easily have been missed if I wasn't paying attention. It's something that wasn't like super highly signposted or whatever, but it's also something that I think is obviously very significant. And so it's given me like a little thread of a quest that I discovered for myself to kind of come back to, which I really appreciate. Anyway, the whole tangent that I was saying before about like art erasure and stuff like that, I feel a little guilty for being like, hey, thank you. I don't even know the guy's name. Fuck. Guy who created JJK. Thank you for creating the prototype for the awesome JJK anime. You know, the thing that I actually enjoy. It's kind of like, you know, unfortunate. But I think it's a bit different because, you know, it's still fundamentally his. Is his name Gege, like Gege Akutani, or is that the Chainsaw Man guy? But either way, like, it's no, let go, please. Um, it's still his work, right? It's still like very obviously, like he's probably still credited as the original creator, you know, stuff like that. It's his visual style, it's his IP that he conceived of. Oh, how about no says Chainsaw Man is Fujimoto, Gege is JJK. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. I hear that apparently Fujimoto has like a friend of mine said that his other works are also like crazy and intense in a good way. Apparently, I need to add that to my reading list. No, 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 come on. Fuck. I just wanted to celebrate like I I wouldn't necessarily give. So I really liked the Reza Arc movie. It is not necessarily the greatest work of cinema ever, but it was very well executed for what it was, and I really enjoyed it. Um, but more to the point, like I just wanted to take a minute to celebrate the fact that I could go to a movie theater and like watch a movie like that was popular and well known and that had a decent crowd of people, and even though I don't like live in a major city or anything like that, there was still a good chunk of people there, and it wasn't just nerds, although that would have been totally fine too. It was a variety of different people who were checking it out. At least when I was growing up, like my particular community, the place where I was in, I think I mentioned this before, right? It's like anime was not cool. Like it was cool to like Dragon Ball, right? Because Dragon Ball was just buff dudes punching the shit out of each other and being awesome and saving the world, and it's basically like kind of Superman adjacent in a way. So and Goku was cool. He's big and strong and awesome, and you know, being Super Saiyan was really cool and exciting. But there wasn't that much else that was really super popular that came from the anime world. I mean, obviously, like from a film standpoint, like the Miyazaki movies were regarded very highly, but also, you know, there's only a certain small group of people who were having discussions about film, at least in my school when I was growing up, right? So that wasn't like really all that relevant until like I got a bit older. Like the friends, the people I was spending time with were a bit older as well. Um, but like that was pretty much it. So the manga that I read as a kid were like Naruto, right? Naruto was considered like was spoken of in a pretty derogatory tone because it was considered like the lame little brother to Dragon Ball, where you know it's like the bratty kid who's not as cool, not as exciting, doesn't have as cool powers or whatever. So Naruto was kind of viewed as like if you're a Naruto fan, like versus a Dragon Ball fan, I can tell you right now which one's more likely to get bullied, if you know what I mean. Not by me, of course, but that was just sort of unfortunately uh, the prejudice or whatever that was alive in the community at the time. Then there was stuff like One Piece. One Piece in Italy was more popular for whatever reason. I don't know if there's a specific reason why, but you know, it was I probably second to Dragon Ball overall. But for the most part, everything else was like, um, you know, like I read what was called in Italy Dragon Die. I think maybe it's not Dragon Quest. It's not the Toriyama one, but it's another like Dragon Adventure or something like that. I read fuck. I guess some other like Toriyama properties like Sandman and Kajika or whatever. but I kind of read whatever I could get my hands on. There was one that was called Cyborg Kuro-chan that was like a little cat that gets like turned into a cyborg. It's pretty charming and stuff. But like obviously, if you were into Sailor Moon or anything like that, like you were dead man walking, right? So, um, just being able to, I mean, like granted, like Chainsaw Man is the exact sort of anime that those like shitty bullies would gravitate towards if they're going to gravitate towards anything. But at the same time, it's like you grow up like feeling like a pariah for just liking something that's kind of cool and fun and quirky and colorful. Then to see that aesthetic, to see that excess, to see that like um, overall um, form of art be embraced and popularized and just like more accessible. You see people celebrating it in a wider way, just being more accepting towards it, and then like just celebrating the art form inherently. It's really cool. I remember there being a period of my life where, like, when gaming started to be more mainstream, when anime started to be more mainstream, I was very bitter about it because I was like, oh, so now all these fucking assholes who used to, like, make our lives miserable because we liked this thing, now they just get to get it for free? Like, no, you said this was our dumb shit and you didn't want any part of it. Fine, it belongs to us now. You can't have it. Fuck off. This is not for you. But when I think about it, what I really wanted from the beginning was for all of us to be able to share in this thing that I thought was cool. I never really wanted to keep it to myself. I wanted to celebrate this thing, feel like I could do so freely, and then feel like other people would understand that, and then that they could like see some of the same things that I wanted. So it happened in a way that felt, I guess, like unfair and like came at the expense of my sanity after a very long time, like too long. But at the same time, it was what I wanted. And so it was sort of missing the point for me to not accept it once it came around. So all this is just to say that I really appreciate the fact that anime has entered the mainstream more and we're able to have conversations like this. Like I'm able to just kind of like casually walk around like in the grocery store and see people with Chainsaw Man and Naruto t-shirts on, just like random people, you know. Um, and like conventions have really blown up and cosplay and stuff like that. Anyway, hey Loha, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Loha says One Piece had no presence where I'm from, or more accurately, when I'm from. That's fair, yeah. Do you think it's gotten bigger these days? Is it something that I never really got into it, so I'm not as familiar with like its growth or its history, so to speak. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, I remember that being such a cool moment when that happened in my first playthrough, when the Hinox like grabs the fucking tree and uses it as a weapon. It's so cool. Oh damn, that broke it. So I obviously feel like out of my depth here. I don't know why I'm struggling so much with finding actual like weapons like this. Okay, here we go. I will say, one sec. I totally lost my train of thought. I'm just gonna focus on the fight. So, I wonder why it feels like I'm having trouble. Yeah, I'm having trouble. Yeah, just leave it there. There was something specific I was trying to say, but I forgot. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I love that shit. I love that you can just like grab the weaponry off its neck. That is such a cool little addition. Oh, can you not hurt it at all? Oh, because of the because of the armor. You have to break the armor off, right? Oh shit. Okay. Right. So there's a lot of stuff like that where like honestly, I don't think that the overall combat system is great. It doesn't feel super satisfying. It didn't feel very modern, excuse me, for the time where it came out. But at the same time, it's like, this is very much a game where like on your first playthrough, or if you haven't played it in a long time and you're rediscovering things, I genuinely think that the experience of discovery is just fantastic in this game, right? Like realizing, oh, they're actually going to let me do that. I'm actually going to be able to steal the weapons from around its neck or whatever. Like, they actually thought to put armor around its feet. Now I'm going to have to learn to figure out how to do something about that. You know, just all of those little details that you wouldn't normally expect of a game. Well, that didn't work. At least normally expect of a game is a weird way to put it, but like, I guess especially if you were sort of jaded like I was at a certain time, then it can feel like these things are almost like a favor that the game is doing you in a way. I don't know how else to describe it, but you start to get so tired of seeing the same, like, you know, not to put too fine a point on it, but like soulless or just like kind of apathetic or like, I don't know, this very stale kind of game design that winds up being disappointing or whatever, and then you finally get a game that's just like, it gets you, it trusts you, it rewards you for experimentation. It puts just little fun secrets there, like just little fun things to just encourage you to have fun and explore and experiment with, you know, and like, yeah, like video games can actually be fun. That's okay. I don't know. The sense of discovery that this game engendered was really important. Still is. For fuck's sake. I can't remember how to do a flurry rush. I'm surprised that the game hasn't, like, taught me that yet. But now I do want to see if I can manage to defeat this boss. Or mini-boss, whatever. Okay. So yeah, I like the fact that this also... I haven't even really, like, messed with that much here. Let me see. So if I... Can I actually use magnesis to get the weapons? I guess not. Can I use Cryonis in any sort of meaningful way in this fight? I haven't, he's probably just gonna go right through it, right? Yeah, one thing that I haven't done is I haven't really tried to use stasis on a whole lot of stuff. I wonder if he takes the tree down. Oh, yeah, I can. What happens if I... Am I hitting the wrong button? What the fuck is happening here? It's not... It's highlighting it, but it's not letting me do anything to it, I think, because he's actively has it equipped. Okay. So now... It's interesting. Like, I think the phrase, can I do this, as opposed to should I do this, is something that has... come up so often in this game. I don't know how to describe it more eloquently, but I know that I could just beat this guy by smashing him over and over and over again with a stick or whatever. But I'm much more interested to see if there are other ways that I can defeat him and what that actually will tell me about the game world if I manage to pull that off, right? Like, that's just much more compelling. Now, unfortunately, I feel like that should have broken through. Right? Like, it would be fair if that broke through his fucking little, defenses there. Okay, well, that doesn't help at all. Oh yeah, I also will say, the one part about this game that I really can't stand is the fucking jazz. I don't know why they made that decision. To me, it totally... does not at all fit with the aesthetic. I don't understand the musical choices that were made. I also think it's a little weird that, like... One sec. I should probably focus. So can I actually, like, climb up? I thought you could climb up on his back. Okay. So I'm gonna focus for a second. Let's see. Drop is this. Can I break it if I just... I'm gonna break the things around his legs. No, so I think you specifically do need fire. Okay. In that case, let's do this. Fire arrow. There we go. Now, I can probably save a fire arrow by going into my weapon inventory and just scrolling over here and then swiping and then swiping here as well. Or do I have to just hold it up against it? There we go. Okay. Now I can run away. Yeah, I don't understand, like, why are we hearing, like, the horns like that? It just doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't mean it's inherently bad or anything, but it's just really weird. I don't get it. Yeah. Loha says, I'm a huge Breath of the Wild hater, so I have to resist the urge to argue when you gush about its good points. No, please do. Like, I was such a hater for this game when it first came out. If anything, we'll just be reminiscing about, like, its flaws. Like, I really don't mind discussing the things that are less good about it. Like, for one, another fucking enemy with a big, like, I think Zelda relies way too heavily as a series on the fucking giant glowing eye thing. Like, the fact that they made every boss in the Majora remake have a giant fucking glowing eye is, like, really disrespectful, low-key. So I think actually for now, I'm not really getting much out of this fight. I think I might come back later just because the one-hit kill situation is really frustrating. But that being said, you know, this whole area has a whole bunch of different ways that I could potentially engage with it. Like, I could try to get a forest fire going by cutting down these trees. I could try and, you know, just start off the fight with fire arrows by... Let me try one more time, actually. Let me see if I can do this. So, like... No. I do want to try fire arrow. That one. And that missed, of course. There we go. Okay. So now, if I chop down this tree... And can I set it on fire itself? Or maybe I can set... No, it didn't burn the whole thing down. Okay. I wonder if I can... If he picks up a tree, can I set the tree limb on fire? Let's try that. Not really. And I'm just wasting fire arrows at this point, right? Yeah, that kind of sucks. But I guess it makes sense. Like, setting a big log like that on fire is kind of a silly proposition to begin with. Alright, so let's see. So now I just need to run. Okay, let's see if I can bait him into taking another tree. Yeah, I mean, like, when you break it down, like, what's happening here combat mechanics-wise, it's kind of stupid. Like, he's not... This isn't, like, a really engaging fight from an overall boss design standpoint, right? Like, it doesn't really hold up to anything like in one of the Souls games. He's just kind of, like, stupidly lumbering around, and the basic combat strategy is just stun him by hitting his eye. I mean, like, obviously I could engage him in, like, straight up combat, but with the camera being... Well, nah, I just kind of talked myself out of it again. Let's see. The camera is sort of fighting against me here. I can't really see what's happening. Okay, so this is actually my... Okay, let me see what happens if I try to fight him straight up. That always switches the camera. Okay. What's he doing? Oh, he's got the stick again. For fuck... Okay. Yeah. That big guy is really disturbing when you see it from the side. Oh, I'll have to take a look. Yeah, so this could absolutely just be my lack of experience with the game. Granted, I have beaten it before, but it's been a very long time. So, but I don't feel... I think this is where I started to feel mixed opinions before. Because, yes, the game does ultimately give you so many different options in terms of how to engage with this, right? Like, I suppose I could set up traps. I could try to light the whole area on fire. I could snipe him from a distance. I could, you know, maybe get on horseback and try and attack him that way. I could... Can I actually use... No, I can't use magnesis on that stuff, but I could, like... I could try and, like, use the time stopping ability to buffer a bunch of, to buffer a bunch of, you know, energy into some of the trees and then, like, bonk him with it. Each of those individual things feels rewarding in that it is, like, if I manage to come up with a strategy that I think is compelling and the game rewards me for that, that feels extremely gratifying. And it feels like the game has like almost this implicit communication with you, and like it's understanding you and rewarding you, and that feels super fucking great. Every single time that happens, I love this game. But then very quickly I start to realize, okay, I'm putting in a whole lot of effort to solve these particular challenges in very particular specific ways or whatever, right? And at the end of the day, my goal here is just I want to defeat this enemy, right? And so if one of the ways to defeat that enemy is an incredibly convoluted like set of like Rube Goldberg machine style setups versus just hitting him with a sword, eventually I'll be inclined to try hitting him with a sword. And then if that doesn't feel great, then what winds up kind of happening is like, okay, well, my choices are engage in this sort of combat system that feels kind of clunky and unrewarding and just not really all that compelling and is pretty brittle and not doesn't really like hold up to modern standards, blah blah blah. Or I could choose to engage in a kind of elaborate puzzle which is rewarding, like a self-determined puzzle which is rewarding from an experiential or discovery standpoint, but also like how deep does that go? Okay, he's got wood on his legs, so if I burn the wood, then I can hit his legs, or if I break the wood in some other way, then I can like hurt his legs as well, right? How far does that actually go? How hard, like how long can that sort of thing be sustained? And I think my initial opinion of the game previously was that it can't really be sustained for that long. That sort of thing winds up like, at least my personal patience with it winds up kind of running out very quickly because it has to be replaced with or supplemented by a genuine sense of like a core thing that still feels good, right? Um, so yeah, like that was cool. Like I figured out, okay, there's this thing I need to move. How am I gonna do it? Can I blow it up? Can I push it? I can't do that. Like, well, I know. I'll try some of my other abilities, and it wasn't like super incredibly obviously telegraphed. I was able to kind of just like piece things together myself and figure it out, and that felt kind of satisfying. And that's great, but how long does that last? And like, okay, if I can use that in combat, do I really want to take the time to like lure the Hinox all the way over to, oh wait, one second. I actually don't want to deal with this right now. Um to lure the Hinox all the way over to the thing and then like go through the whole process of buffering up the kinetic energy or whatever, and like at a certain point it's a lot of effort to just wind up accomplishing the same thing that you would accomplish by just thwacking the motherfucker if it felt good enough to thwack him in the first place, so at a certain point I'm just like, well, why didn't you just make thwacking feel better? Well, the answer to that is so that we would have a reason to engage in the other stuff. But if the other stuff doesn't feel good enough to sustain in the long term, then it's just like it feels frustrating. Like, well, could you please just give me like a couple of good feeling combat verbs? Because I don't want to have to go through this rigmarole every single time, right? So, again, this is just like this is me describing like a potential negative as opposed to like an ultimatum. But I can definitely understand how things might like just get fatiguing and frustrating after a while, right? Where it's like, okay, and it's really difficult too from the perspective of a game developer. Like, how do you keep that shit interesting for dozens, if not hundreds, of hours? I think it really comes down to like, I don't know. I was never the sort of person who you could hand a loose box of Legos to, and have me be able to figure out what to do with them, right? Like I usually needed some kind of instruction, not instructions, but like a plan, a template, a model. And some people hate that shit. If you actually, so it's ironic, like there's a video by a YouTuber called Nakey Jakey. I think it just goes by Jakey now, where it's called like the problem with Red Dead Redemption 2, or it might be called like Rockstar's game design is outdated or something like that. And he kind of goes through how Red Dead 2 is an amazing story, an amazing world, like one of the most impressive sims ever created in gaming history, but also it's extremely restrictive to the point of being like pretty much outright reductive when it comes to actually like letting you play the fucking game. There's really not all that much game there beyond the scripted sequences that the game like makes you engage in. And if you deviate from those scripted sequences, things go downhill really fast. It's like extremely brittle in terms of actually letting you express yourself and explore and experiment, right? And so Jakey described it as being like, you know, a game like not Fortnite. What was the other example that he used? I don't know, some other open world game, maybe something like Far Cry, is like a big old box of Legos that gets dumped out on the floor, and it's up to you to figure out what to do. And then, you know, the like Rockstar games are much more like a very specific instructional booklet comes with the Legos, and then you have to do exactly like follow every single step or the whole thing falls apart. And he really likes the open box Lego stuff, and I prefer the instructions. But at the same time, I really couldn't stand Red Dead 2 from a gameplay standpoint. From a narrative standpoint, from a character standpoint, it was very compelling. But to actually play it was miserable. I feel like it never rewarded me for playing it the way I wanted to play it. And so it's weird. In principle, I should absolutely adore a game like this because I should be all over something that just constantly encourages me to experiment and mess around and come up with my own way of having fun. In fact, the most fun that I had with Horizon Zero Dawn was when I got fucking bored with the main story and just decided I was going to try to find a way to skip a major plot point, and I did. It took me like an hour, but I found a way to like glitch my way around the collision on this mountain pass, and I have no idea how much of the game that I skipped, but there was like a big major boss fight that was supposed to happen in this canyon, and then I got around it, and then all of a sudden like I was way further in the plot, and I was like, okay, fine, thanks for the shortcut, you know. Pausing to inhale for a second. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I feel like this game is these as a game on stream, like it's weird. I was about to say I find it very kind of like relaxing and chill to just explore, and it's an easy game to play on stream because, you know, it's not something as high stakes as something like Armored Core was, where we can just kind of pick a direction and wander and see what we find. Um but at the same time, let's see. Island stable. Um but at the same time, it's kind of like, you know, there have been moments where I haven't been able to focus on chat at all because I've just been like reading or navigating menus. But that probably has more to do with my own like lack of focus than opposed to anything with the game inherently. Well, I'm glad that worked. Yeah, so when I get to the top of this tower, let's see how far we've actually come in pursuit of our like full-on journey that we were talking about before. Loha says it's kind of impossible to make Lego World games stay interesting for 100 hours. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, right? Because you could argue that Minecraft is the ultimate Lego game experience, right? That game is literally just like, I mean, I guess there is a story, and there's like, you know, the Nether or whatever. There's an Ender Dragon. There's the creepers, aw man, etc. People come blow your shit up. You have to survive, right? So a there is like a traditional gameplay mode uh, in Minecraft where you can follow, I think, a story, and you can like you have to complete certain specific objectives in a specific order and stuff like that. But also, like, it can, and I think for a lot of players it can be, and for a lot of players is just a totally free-form experimental experience where you're like just kind of do whatever you want, right? And the entire world is like, some people have literally built computers, like functional actual computers inside Minecraft, which I'm sure like is old news at this point. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it is kind of what you want it to be, and people spend thousands of hours like invested in building things in that world. in the freeform creative world. So I think it can be, but it really depends on the nature of the game, and you have to understand your audience and like know the niche or know the community or whatever that you are creating for, if that makes sense. And make sure that you're servicing that niche. Does that make any sense? Because not other people, I don't know if you've heard the expression like one man's trash is another man's treasure, but I think some people will consider, are the octos making the wind? I can't tell. But some people might consider the thing you consider to be a benefit to just be like a huge pain in the ass and not want to deal with it, right? Oh, great. He's gonna one-shot me. Yeah, well, almost. I love the way those things like run on the air. It's such a cool like visual effect. All right, well, let's see if I can deal with this. I thought he would one-shot me, which is why I was trying to avoid him. Let's see where'd he go. Oh, great. Now he's just gonna stay up there out of reach, huh? Okay. Gonna come down here? Yeah, I don't understand what's happening with the music. It doesn't mean it's a mistake per se, but like I don't get it. I don't get. Oh wow, it's such a cool design though. The face in the middle. Okay, bye. Yeah, I just don't get it. I don't know how else to describe it. Feels like it clashes a whole lot with what's just actually happening in the game. Now I do like this though, right? Like if you are just doing random exploring at this point in the game, you probably, like me, and if you, sorry, let me rephrase that. So if you are exploring in a random direction without a specific goal in mind, and you just pick this direction, you happen to come towards this tower, you're probably not going to have enough stamina to climb it yourself. So, like through the normal means or whatever. So it's probably, is it gonna do one at a time? Oh, for fuck's sake, that's not at all what I wanted to do. Okay, hang on, I gotta focus here. Okay, this is sort of working. Okay. Oh, shit! Alright, that sort of worked, I guess. I thought it would let me, like, drop it piece by piece. That clearly didn't work. I don't think I have any stamina increasing food, so I don't think I'm gonna make this. Right? Do I have anything? What's in my cooked meals? Oh, this one does. Okay. Okay, I might be able to make it then. It's still gonna be really close. Yeah, I don't think I'm making it. We'll try though. So what I was trying to say is that, like, I feel like most players probably aren't going to be fully able to get up this part of the tower through normal means. And so, you know, basically the game is like, okay, you're going to have to figure this shit out on your own. Can I jump? Yes! Ah, that was very satisfying. Okay, you're going to have to figure this out on your own. But here's a little hint, right? We're going to give you these things that increase your that are like buoyant or whatever, that increase your ability to go up. It's going to be up to you to figure out how to use them and apportion them, to experiment with them, to make mistakes, and to, you know, just learn from those mistakes and express yourself with them. And then if that doesn't work, then you can find out another way. Because even if this particular solution doesn't wind up gelling with you, if you don't wind up really getting anything out of that, we have still taught you that there will be ways to innovate your way around different problems. So it's not always the case that you just need to pass like a health or stamina check. It's more like you just need to think of, okay, what tools can I avail myself of? And then if I don't have any now, where can I go to get some? And as much as I love Elden Ring, like, apart from, excuse me, a couple of very rare exceptions, the tools that you have access to are like well, you can go over here and kill that thing, and that'll make you stronger, but that might be too hard to kill right now, so you can go over here and kill this other thing first, and that might make you stronger to go back and kill the first thing, blah, 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 right? So it's like, you know, the fact that the game is actively encouraging you to find your own solutions to things while also not leaving you totally in the dark and giving you like a nudge in the right direction, I think is a great balance overall. I am very tired. So I actually think I'm gonna probably wrap up the stream a little early tonight. This is gonna be a little bit shorter one because I just wanted to see like where we could get to. Oh, I do see that there is yeah, so there is actually a shrine up there. And so far I felt like I really enjoyed just kind of being in the world, just existing in the space, right? I feel like there have been, oh, that's really cool with the geyser and the lightning and stuff. Yeah. There have been some things that have happened that I have found like pretty genuinely enjoyable and fun and cool. There's been other things that I have found kind of frustrating, but at the end of the day, the game has pretty consistently provided us with, I think, like interesting visuals and some decent puzzles or problems to solve, and most importantly, like multiple ways to deal with those problems. The world itself feels alive and interesting enough to just want to continue spending time in. I'm curious to see what else is out there. That being said, I had mixed feelings about that shrine that we did. Um, Especially as somebody who's like a traditional Zelda fan, so to speak, and who wasn't tired of the formula. You know, I really remember hoping for some kind of deep dungeon in this game, like a really exceptional traditional Zelda dungeon, even just like one or two. And I felt like the shrines wound up just feeling like they had one really big, really cool Zelda dungeon, and instead of giving that to us, instead of that, they just like chopped it up into 120 or however many little pieces and scattered them around. And the individual pieces like were not as compelling. Like part of what makes a dungeon compelling is you know, going through it the first time and not, oh shit, I forgot about that. Yeah, going through it the first time and then, oh, it's a one hit kill, fuck. And seeing all of the different like pathways that are barred to you, and then speculating about like what you could possibly do to get around it, and then you get the item that's associated with the dungeon, and then you get a clue as to what you're supposed to do, and then it's up to you to like sort of innovate on that and figure it out as you go. I guess the counter argument to that though is that the world itself, oh sorry, to finish my first thought before I move on, for a change of pace, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Oh wait, do I have to like get rid of my weapon? Yeah. So yeah, like I feel like that first little shrine that we did, I mean, the actual puzzle, right, that was inherent to that shrine was incredibly simple and incredibly basic. It was basically just like, you know, just fucking move this metal thing to give yourself access to a place that you normally wouldn't have access to. It's basically like make yourself stairs out of things that are not stairs. And the dungeon itself could have been over in like 5 minutes, like really, 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 really easily, really simply, right? But, oh yeah, I forgot about that mechanic. That's really cool. Hello. What are you? Oh, there's a thing. Are there some more? Huh? the monkey sounds. Oh no, the kookaburra sounds. Yeah. So I keep hearing things appear and disappear. Oh, there's one. Well, for fuck's sake, come on. I'm doing great. But yeah, so I think I'll leave this alone for now. But basically, like, the way I was feeling before was that the world overall was, Oh yeah, so the dungeon itself, like the actual puzzle to solve, the actual mystery or whatever in the dungeon was pretty basic and pretty bland. Like it's literally just make stairs, make a platform, make a ramp or whatever. It's like the most fucking basic, bargain bin physics puzzle in the world. But the the thing with the blocks that I wound up knocking over with the metal platform, that was so cool because I felt like the game tricked me into learning something that I wasn't that was totally surprising, right? Like I thought for sure, okay, this dungeon is specifically designed to teach me about like how to make platforms out of shit. I already figured that out. Now I'm gonna have to do this shit again, make another fucking platform. I'm Mr. Smart Man. I already understand this. And then the platform knocked over the bricks, and I realized, oh wait, no, I'm thinking of this combat system or this tool or whatever as fitting one very specific purpose, having one very specific utility, and I'm thinking of it in too much of a limited way. The game is trying to nudge me in the direction of treating every tool that I have as like this multi. Your horse is spinched. Congratulations. um, the fuck. Uh, to kind of treat it in like this more nuanced way of like everything that you have access to is going to have a multitude of different, of different uses, and it's up to you to figure out like what uses are going to be best for your purposes. Um, so yeah, I like that a lot, and I love it when a game can either trick you into feeling smart or trick you into learning something that you didn't think you were going to be able to. All in all, just a really great moment, and it's little moments like that wind up making this experience compelling for me. What is less compelling is just the mm, I guess like comparing the shrine itself to that little moment. The moment was great. The shrine itself was kind of crap, right? Like I guess maybe that's a little unfair because it was a very early shrine, and so in and of itself, there's nothing inherently wrong with it, right? It's fine for something early on to be simple. Um, but at the same time, it's like, okay, where are we going to go from here? How is this going to grow? And when I played the game last time, I felt like there wasn't really a whole lot of ways in which it did grow. It kind of like stagnated pretty quickly. So yeah. Um, but that being said, so I have very mixed feelings about it. But overall, I'm feeling more positive than before. But I think that's in large part due to the fact that I have you guys to talk to, and I have like my own stream of consciousness going. If I was looking for a more focused, like task-driven game with more specific traditional objectives, I think I would be bouncing off this game pretty hard. But because I'm allowing myself to just kind of exist, it's like I don't know, feels pretty calming. I mean, like, just as an example, right? If you compare this area to a random slice of Elden Ring, which I guess this is the Elden Ring versus like Breath of the Wild comparison video, but like, think about how in Elden Ring, every portion of the world has something going on. There's like an item to collect, there's some enemies to fight, there's a little bit of lore, there's something hidden. I feel like a lot of I mean, I'm kind of proving myself wrong by looking around and seeing stuff like that, seeing like various areas. But like this whole area here is just fucking blank, right? There's a place to climb up over there. I guess that there's a goat or something. What is that? I can't really see. There's a bird, but like this is something you wouldn't really run into in something like Elden Ring. There'd be more going on. I think there are definitely like open areas, but something about this area in particular just feels a little too barren, a little too arid. But then again, like this was a launch title for the Switch, right? I'm playing, yeah. So I'm probably being a little unfair. There's still stuff going on. I'm still having like an encounter here, and it's actually not a bad idea to have like some examples of just empty blank space or whatever from time to time, just for some variety. You don't have to fill every fucking corner and crevasse of the world with dense shit like all the time. But yeah, Aloha says it's kind of impossible. Oh yeah, I've been one. Yeah, I've been one-shotted by so many things weaker than lightning. So it's funny that getting one-shotted by lightning surprised you. Yeah, I think also I just forgot that like that's actually something I wanna praise. Right, the game maybe it will in the fucking like tutorial, pop up in the loading screen, but diegetically, I never got a pop up from like Navi or whatever I actually really like Navi, but just as an example, right? Um, Navi popping out of my pocket and being like, Link, Link, you gotta watch out when lightning sparks on your back. It's because you have. I wonder if there's something on your back that's attracting the lightning. Maybe something metallic. I want like she never does that, right? Like you never get something that picks you up and shakes you and it's like, hey, hey, motherfucker, this is exactly what you literally have to do now. Stop being stupid, right? It kind of trusts you to be able to figure that out. I think probably if you wind up dying to it too many times, if I remember correctly, the game does have a system where it will like select specific tutorial messages for you that are more relevant to your recent fail conditions. Like this is not necessarily true. I haven't like studied it, but I think a lot of like the tutorial message systems will have like a set of default messages that can be randomized and scrolled through, but then also you can insert specific messages or change the weighting of which like the percent chance of any given message to appear based on recent events that have happened in the player's play session. So if you wind up dying to the same thing over and over again, they'll pop up for one or two messages. They'll pop up things that are relevant to the specific way that you died to help you out, stuff like that, right? It's part of an adaptive difficulty or an adaptive tutorial system. That makes sense. But at the same time, it's like the game never did that in a way that felt like it was insulting my intelligence or getting in the way of me figuring out shit out on my own. The fact that I was able to put two and two together, that like the lightning was specifically being attracted to the metal on my back, like I genuinely wonder, like that feels so intuitive to me. Like I grew up understanding that like lightning hits metal shit. I never really understood why, like at least, well, I do now, but like there was a time in my life, what I'm trying to say is there was a time in my life where I vaguely knew, like, hey, if lightning is happening, go away from metal because it likes metal. Feel like a lot of people grow up with that knowledge somewhere in their memory bank, so to speak. Um, but I genuinely wonder, like, how much of the player base, how much of like the people who were place testing the game immediately understood that, and how many people like genuinely were confused and were like, I don't understand why I'm getting shocked and like rage quit. I would like to have a little bit of faith in our education system and just in people's intuition in general to be like, I'm sure most people figured it out, right? Even if you don't understand electricity or lightning or anything like that, like you can see the fucking sparks, you hear the sound effect. Um, but yeah. So I think here's another thing that I wound up the sort of crossing point for me when where I previously decided I didn't like the game anymore and I just kind of like finished it out of spite, unfortunately, was you have these beautiful moments where you get to places like this and you're like, wow, okay, I you can't see the level of detail and all the things that are hidden amongst the various like um I don't think there's any way of seeing like those dinosaur bones or whatever they are from where we started, or it looks like those might be like giant swords coming out of the ground, or maybe those are more bones or whatever. um but like either way, you can't see this stuff from where we started, and so I guess I have like this idea in my head of, oh, okay, I'm going to get to this, and this is probably what I'm gonna get to this point. This is probably what I'm gonna see there, and if I wind up seeing something else, that's a nice surprise or whatever. But no, there's lots of surprises. There's lots of things that I didn't expect that are very pleasant surprises, like this whole like crescent area over there, the island over there. There's another further island way out over there. There's a weird boat or some structure there, right? So there's a lot of visually interesting stuff, and the game does a great job of like pulling you to these locations where then you can create like a breadcrumb trail for yourself. Like you survey the location, you see something else interesting, you go to the next place. But I think what wound up disappointing me is like, okay, well, we managed to get all the way over here. Is there actually going to be something here that is a tangible, lasting reward, like a piece of lore, a piece of story, an interesting character, or like a weapon or an item? And consistently, I found that that wasn't the case. That I would get to a place and there would be a nice vista or something like that, but for the most part, it would just kind of be underwhelming what I found there. And very quickly, my personal motivation to move to the next place and explore and see what was going to be there like plummeted because I was like, okay, well, I already know what's going to be there. It's just going to be a nice vista and very something minor. It's going to be like a Korok or like a weapon that degrades right away. Maybe there'll be a cool statue here or there. Maybe there'll be like a cool character. Like obviously there's somebody down there that we should talk to. But for the most part, it's going to be the same. And every time I got my hopes up and was disappointed, I just wound up resenting the game more and feeling like it was wasting my time. But for some people, this in and of itself will be the reward. Like, legitimately, coming up to a place like this and just looking around, the sensation that you get, the feeling, the vibes, whatever, this is what it's about. It's just inhabiting the world, feeling a sense of accomplishment for reaching the summit, and just genuinely, like, you know, feeling like you've discovered, feeling like you've explored, feeling like you've gotten to know the world better. Maybe you see a cool dragon along the way, maybe you don't. Maybe you find a cool weapon, maybe you don't. The purpose is intrinsic as opposed to, it's like the whole like cliche about like the journey being more important than the destination. I think that is genuinely the case for a lot of players. And the fact that I bounced off of it doesn't necessarily mean that it's inherently wrong or anything like that. I will say, comparing favorably this game to Elden Ring, that the night day cycle I think is handled better overall in this game, in the weather system and stuff like that. The world itself feels a little bit more organic. Like look at the moon like actually traveling across the sky and being silhouetted so nicely behind the clouds. The lighting, the graphics are quote unquote more primitive compared to something like a lot of big super shiny, you get the new Nvidia graphics card to unlock this game's true potential with DLSS or whatever, like whatever. It doesn't really fit that description graphically in terms of fidelity, but also there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of love and care and craft. Even like the little details of the specks and motes and the leaves kind of going in the wind, they kind of indicate the direction of the wind and the intensity of it and stuff like that. It's just quite, and it just stopped and then it picked up again. It's like, I don't know, the whole world feels like it's living and breathing, and it's just that pun again, but still it's very true. Aloha says, intuitively understanding the metal plus lightning interaction is an interesting topic. At what age do kids officially learn about that in school? Did the devs have that age range in mind when they added the mechanic and chose not to have a direct pointing? Yeah, genuinely interesting. I don't know the answer to that question, genuinely, but I feel like it's there would be some of the like game directors or producers that I've worked with would look at something like that and be like, we cannot ship this, right? Like we're not allowed to do this because some players will have this happen to them and they'll throw the controller at the wall and never buy our game again. um and then some people would insist that it is necessary to have that moment where even if it's confusing, even if it drives players crazy, it will be worth it for the discovery that comes out of it. I think the default response will be like, usually the way that I've personally seen things go down is like there's a phase of the project called pre-production, which I'm sure is a term used by other industries as well. It's nothing special, but it's basically just a project, part of the project where we're all kind of brainstorming ideas, we're coming up with concepts, the script is still being figured out, etc. And usually there will be a good amount of time where developers are just kind of like, okay, you've got a month and we need like a excuse me, we need a couple of functional prototypes, pitch something, and then you can build it and we'll see what works and what doesn't. And so if somebody thinks the lightning thing is cool, right, they'll put it in and just kind of wait to see how other people respond to it. And then based on their responses, if people are still skeptical about it, they might like send it in for testing from friends and family. They might send it in for QA testing with like a focus group or something, and then just make sure that people in general aren't like horribly bouncing off of it. But I would say, around probably more than half the time, the way that I see features come online is people generate ideas together and then build them and see how they feel and then test them, as opposed to necessarily having to have things like all approved and like researched beforehand. But it depends. The game that I'm working on right now, it's like no decision is made unless they think they have market research behind it. And it's like the game directors aren't even really directing the game. They're just kind of like creating task lists for us, and then we execute on the tasks and then deliver those deliverables. And then we won't know whether or not they were actually like, if the directors on the team actually liked the work. They will either say nothing, in which case we can assume that they liked it, or they will tell us that during a focus research group session that the data that came back from the focus group was that it was not acceptable and needs to be redone. And then we'll be like, okay, well, what's your new direction? And they're like, not that, do something else. And be like, oh, well, what do you think about if we do it this way, right? The sky was red, we're going to turn it to green now. What do you think about that? And they're like, I think you need to change it because the focus testers didn't like it. So change it and then send it to me, and then if there's a problem, we'll let you know. It's like the dumbest fucking workflow ever, but they don't want to take any risks because the nature of the project is that, like, they just need to keep the investors happy, and the investors will be happy if the player base indicates, like, the prospective player base indicates that they want to buy the thing. So there is no creative direction there. I mean, like, I'm exaggerating. There are obviously people on the team who care a lot about the vision of the game and the aesthetics of the game, and they're trying, right, to herd the cats. They're trying to put the reins on and steer the project in some kind of direction. But a lot of the folks who are, signing the paychecks, so to speak, they don't care. They just want it done, and as long as the client is happy, as long as, or the production, the marketing, whatever, whoever's in charge, whoever's sitting on the golden toilet seat or whatever, as long as they're happy, they don't care. Like, they won't listen. They're not having conversations. They're not brainstorming. They're just executing.
Sava Sava.
Sava Sava.
Huh?
Could you be the Vo I am destined to meet? And this is the Pond of Legend. See, I do like this, right? Like, we found this pond organically on our own. We're learning about a character. We're learning about some backstory. So yeah, this is kind of cool. I feel like this is a decent reward for the exploration here.
Huh?
I'm probably going to get one shot by this heart-shaped body of water, too. If I'm not careful, I'm going to just fucking drown. Yeah, let's see what you got to say, buddy. And work up the courage to talk to her. Just let me... Nope, rival time. Are you going to do anything? I'm so glad. Oh, by the way. Okay. My name is Wabbin. To be honest, I lost my way earlier. I closed my eyes for a minute, and when I opened them, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen was standing before me. First, I thought I was dreaming, or that she was a ghost or something. I mean, it's not every day you run into a gorgeous woman in the middle of nowhere, but figment of my imagination or not, it was love at first sight. And so I've decided to gather my courage and go confess my feelings to her. I decided long ago that when I meet the woman of my dreams, or the girl of my dreams, I'll hand her a blue nightshade and confess my love. If I had a blue nightshade, I'd head straight over to that woman I meet, imagine her, and a blue nightshade. That'd make a beautiful scene, don't you think? I mean, do I? Thank you. Perfect. Okay, let's see. Ooh la la. Didn't know we were playing a French game. Okay, well, I wonder, so here's an interesting thing, like, this is what I was talking about, like the role-playing aspects, right? There is a very clear choreographed set of events that I'm supposed to engage in. There's not like a whole lot of room for expression, right? So let's see though.
Huh? Huh?
Yeah. So I think really, like, this is sort of like the Fallout 4 problem where your dialogue options are say yes or say not right now, right? Okay, so, yeah. Like, in a game like Fallout, for example, like Fallout New Vegas, or, fucking, you know, what was I thinking of? Like Baldur's Gate, you would have the option to, like, go tell him where to find some nightshade, or, like, you could go buy it or pick it yourself, or you could tell her what he had just said, or, like, you could usurp it by giving her the blue nightshade and making her, like, trying to propose to her yourself, or whatever. There would be a bunch of different options. Let's see where this goes.
Huh?
Yeah, so, like, there's really no option other than to just execute the set of instructions. So it's weird, right? Like the game itself in terms of exploration and mechanics and stuff is so is so liberating, is so free form and all that, but then when it actually comes to the quest, it's like there's no real room for expression unless there's like an option C that I just haven't discovered yet. Like if I went away and went to town or something, I would find out something about the Blue Nightshade. But yeah, I don't know. Like yeah, maybe I could like convince him to give her like a red rose instead and see how that affects things.
Mm.
Oh, hey Chris, how's it going? Chris says that type of faceless or soulless
Huh?
development schedule is the stuff of my nightmares. It's a corporate workflow that demands thousands of employees because by the end of it, 90% was scrapped. Yeah, I can't talk about specific details, but like I probably have whined about it on Hamza's stream at some point. But like we recently had a thing happen where there was a like I brought up a concern and I was like, "Hey, there's we should stop working on this because we're not going to be able to use it. We should stop it now." And they were like, "No, it doesn't matter." I'm like, "Okay." A few months later, "Hey, we're still not going to be able to use this. We need to stop this." And they were like, "No, it's okay. We already accounted for it in the budget." And then, like, sure enough, they were like, "Oh, oops, we can't use it," and they quietly deleted it. And I was like, "Why is all this stuff gone now?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, well, we thought about it and we realized we didn't really need it." Okay, so you guys wasted like what, like 50, $100,000? Like I don't even want to think about how much money you just wasted. And they were like, "Yeah, well, that was in the budget anyway." And I'm like, that doesn't fucking matter. Like $100,000 is like multiple people's salaries, especially like you could have given that to junior folks to like given them opportunities. You could have given somebody a bonus if you wanted to. You could have made an upgrade to the facilities. You could have just stored that in the bank so that inevitably, like rather than firing people, you have like some when the project ships and there's a down period, you can sustain for a while longer. You could have just like saved it, not set it on fire. But no, they don't care. Like it was already in the budget. They already had the money, so why would we need to hang on to it, right? And then lo and behold, later it's like, hey, we need approval for like a thing that'll cost like we're using like 10-year-old computers, which whatever. I don't have a super modern computer for my own gaming stuff or whatever. But like when you're working on a game and you're using a 10-year-old computer, you are just burning through money for the company because you are not able to keep up with the demands of the software that you're working on. So it's like, hey, you could spend like you could get us all like screaming bleeding edge top like 50 amazing fucking computers that would actively save you a shitload of money with that same money, and then that could be passed off when we're done. You could keep those computers as well. It's like, no, we can't do that. That's not in the budget. Okay, can we get 10? No, that's not in the budget. Okay, well, it's not in the fucking budget because you guys didn't plan for anything, and then you didn't listen when people tried to help you. It's like they don't care. They don't see it that way. Their logic doesn't work the same way. They just don't see the same world in the same parameters. I don't know how to fucking explain it other than that. But it is infuriating, and it sounds like unfortunately that you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm sorry for your pain. Loa says, "I wonder what you're meant to do here." Yeah, I wonder. Chris says quest being linear is a favorite of general gaming. To be fair, the MMO genre by itself has proven that simple quests work best. Yeah, it's not necessarily an inherent flaw, right? Like having a simple task and having a clear objective and a clear outcome isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I do find it like it also can feel very constricting and limiting, and it can feel immersion breaking when it feels like, especially since this game is so good at like rewarding the logic that at least I feel like I'm inclined to use as a player, like chopping down a tree, setting a fire, stuff like that, when there's very clearly a lot of depth and intricacy invested in the logic of the world itself. When there is a lack of uh, commensurate or comparative depth in the quests, it feels like it sticks out like a sore thumb, right? It feels like something's missing. Maybe it's a testament to the overall quality of the rest of the game that this something that feels like it would be totally normal elsewhere stands out as being a flaw here, because you could argue like the game has set a higher standard and now it's not living up to its own promises. So there's a way to kind of spin this into a positive for the game. At the moment, it's just kind of like it stands out to me as being a bit of a flaw. Um, Quest being linear. Oh yeah, we don't have a lot of Morrowinds, but the classic kill and fetch quest can be found in 90% of the game. Yeah, if it works, don't fix it. Yeah, it can be effective, right? But I guess the question then is like, how do we define whether or not it's working? Like, who gets say over that? To me, it's not working. To another player, this could be exactly what they're looking for. So I think it's an interesting discussion about like where our like win state, so to speak, like where the parameters for success on things like this. How do we determine whether it's good enough, right? Um, Loha says this sequence is really what drove me to hate the game. The past 20 minutes of gameplay has been hold W, optionally fight mobs for no reward, and then talk to NPCs in A to B. Yeah, I can. I think that's how I felt the first time I played through too. I'm appreciating a lot more of the little things in the game now, but the overarching like I could just sit here for like 10 minutes and watch the wind in Link's hair and the little dust motes and everything in the water and just genuinely appreciate from a technical standpoint like what they pulled off in building this space. But in terms of the actual, what the game is asking of us, uh it doesn't really stack up in certain other ways, right? um Chris says, I swear every company has a use this old machine until it breaks and until it's crumbling, even if it costs us 10 times money story. Yeah, I once did like some volunteer work at a fucking like a bird observatory because I was dating somebody at the time who was like very very passionate about birds, and so basically we set up there was like this research station that set up what are called mist nets. They're very very thin fine nets, and the birds would come through on migration and they would get stuck in the nets. We would take them out, we would catalog them. If they had a band on their leg, we would track them, and then we would let them go. Just kind of tracking their migration patterns and population densities and stuff like that. And the person who ran the lab had like legit a computer from late 1970s, early 1980s. It was like a creaky, dusty old DOS machine. It might have been a little bit more recent than that, but like it was probably released around the same time the first Doom was, and it was like there's no internet, no Microsoft Word. It's just like floppy disks, like that stored all the data on it, and it was literally just like you know all the entire database, like all of the information for thousands of birds coming through each season was on this like technological dinosaur that was impermeable to anybody who like had been born in the past couple of decades. So it's like, are you can like I offered him at one point, like, please, I have a computer, I'm not using it, can I please give this to you and show you how to use it? And he was just like, nope, can't do it, sorry. I have my methods, I have my ways. So I'm like, okay, it works for you, it works for you, right? But like I feel like it was so slow for everybody else that it would have been a huge benefit if he had just been willing to take the time to learn it. But that's also somewhat biased to me, right? I'm saying, well, it's easy enough for me to envision that, but that doesn't mean it would literally work for him. So I get it. It can be hard to move on from the paradigm that you've invested so much in. And also, he just trusted the fucking thing. Like, say what you will about it, it was a brick that occasionally lit up, but it fucking lit up. It did what it was supposed to do. It didn't break, right? So it was slow, it was clunky, but it worked, and so there's an argument there.
Oh. Huh? Mm.
Oh.
Huh?
Oh.
Huh?
Mm.
Eh?
Cute. Its red luster tickles your
Huh?
heartstrings. Okay.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean like that was actually pretty cute. And considering the fact like I think I probably wouldn't have had as much fondness for it if I had had to go find the blue nightshade, or maybe I would have. Maybe I would have enjoyed the process of like trying to track one down even more. But yeah, like To your point, Chris, like I don't think that there's anything wrong with having like a simple quest where it's just like, hey, no big deal, like, oh, I'm gonna die, no big deal. Just go and talk to this person, and it'll be a simple thing. Just go fetch an item, and then you'll get a little bit of a request reward, and then you can move on with your life, right? Nothing inherently wrong with that. I just, if that winds up kind of dominating the majority of the experience, I think eventually it starts to wear out its welcome. And if you're expecting the same level of depth across the game, it might be disappointing. But anyway, I think this is probably a good place to end for now. This feels like we've done a good amount of exploring. We've had a little bit of combat, a little bit of puzzles. We've met some NPCs. The game overall feels very chill and very, like, comfy. I could definitely see myself spending more time just existing in this world. I will say that in terms of, like, a lot of the individual tasks that you are, like, saddled with, so to speak, not a lot of them individually... that horse is just sliding across the ground. Not a lot of them feel like they quite match the depth of other contemporaries, so to speak. But as an overall gestalt experience of just like, hey, I just want to exist in this space. This seems like a cool, comfortable space to exist in. I think this game has a lot of merit, and I think I am genuinely feeling like I was probably too harsh on it before. Although I think my criticisms still stand, I'm also able to kind of look back on it and be like, those criticisms stand, and then also, in addition to that, there's a lot to appreciate and value here. So this has been a positive, positive experience overall. So, for next time, I think what I would like to do is play through a similar, like, opening of Tears of the Kingdom and examine how that game manages to, like, what strategies does it use to invite the player in, given that, it has a paradigm that it is iterating on from Breath of the Wild in a way that Breath of the Wild didn't really have, coming from, it's a whole lot closer to Breath of the Wild than Breath of the Wild was to Twilight Princess or even Skyward Sword. So, or certainly like fucking Link Between Worlds or whatnot. So yeah, I think I'm very curious to see whether they can recapture the spirit of the Great Plateau in the sequel, and if not, then what they do instead of that. I'm very curious about that. Also, there's a game coming out next Thursday that I would like to try, and I would like to try it on stream with you guys, but I don't know if it is a good idea because I think it might be taken the wrong way. So I'm gonna post a poll, and we'll see what people think, and we'll go from there. As for this Sunday, I was wrong last week when I said we were only going to have one more Hashirama stream. We're going to have one more, and I've taken a little bit of time this week to review some of the debates between Sage and Walkie Talkie, as well as to go over modal realism and learn a little bit more about that philosophy. And now that I'm not prepared to give a lecture on it or anything. Modal realism as a philosophical concept is so fucking weird and convoluted that I think it'll be a while before I could ever, instruct on it. But I think I know enough about it to be able to say, here is what I've learned, and here is why, the Naruto debate community, it makes so much more sense now. If people find this sort of argumentation compelling, if this is the kind of philosophy that they're being trained with, or, coming up with, so to speak, then a lot of the other arguments make more sense. The pragmatism arguments and stuff like that. So it's going to be more of a, philosophy stream. I am not a philosopher. I don't even particularly like philosophy, but I think it'll be interesting to talk about the philosophical strategies and paradigms that folks in the community use and how they overlap with some other philosophical schools of thought, if that makes sense. So, looking forward to that. Loha says, you haven't played Tears of the Kingdom. Correct, I have not yet played Tears of the Kingdom. I really didn't wasn't interested in it at all because I don't like the crafting stuff. Like, I do like the idea that there are ways that you can at least in theory, right? I like the idea that there are multiple different expressive or emergent ways that you can find to solve any given problem, and that if you combine different things, you can use things like the physics system to solve problems in interesting, nonlinear ways. I think that's great. Um, it seemed like Tears of the Kingdom was leaning heavily into that. I didn't really find the idea of like making fucking contraptions really all that interesting. Like that's like swinging all the way in the other direction away from like the bespoke constructed Zelda dungeons and into just like, hey, find your own fun somewhere here in this sandbox filled with Legos. And I'm like, okay, sandboxes are fun, Legos are fun, but you've just handed me a bunch of plastic bricks filled with sand, and now I'm pissed and I want to go home. So that's what I thought was going to be my experience. But I still want to give it a shot, right? I still want to see like how it holds up, and specifically if I'm going to be talking about like openings of games, how do you make a sequel to one of what I have found to be one of the strongest like openings in a modern game period, at least in terms of like instruction and immersion and like expression and other words, right? So Chris says the crafting was a noble attempt at recreating Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, a failed game. Yeah, I've seen footage of that. I think maybe I saw Video Game Donkey's video on it, and again, like I don't really. I'm sure some people absolutely adore that, right? And like seeing the compilations of crazy contraptions and stuff that people were able to come up with was genuinely awesome. But I'm just not like really motivated by that as a player. Like I would much rather be given. Oh, nice. I would much rather be like given an overall like a very clear victory condition and then a few different tools that I could like figure out how to innovate on and experiment with to get there. But I don't. There's a certain amount of open-endedness that after. Yeah, so here's a great example, right? I really liked Baldur's Gate 3, although I had mixed feelings about it. I think it's an excellent game. But Larian's previous game, Divinity Original Sin 2, I really bounced off that game hard because when you get to the first area, minor spoilers, I guess, but like the first area of the game, you're trapped on this like prison island, and the first mission is like you have to escape from the island. And there's, I don't know, like 20 different ways you can do it, right? You can fight your way through an arena, you can bribe some guards, you can engage in that, like, there's all of these different, like, little quests and factions and stuff like that. And I wound up spending like 5 or 6 hours getting involved in the island's politics and history and all that stuff. And then, like, I think I was going to go through one way where I don't even remember. It was like do a favor for some gang, and then the gang would help smuggle you out of the city. And then I just like because I had like a sufficient perception check or whatever, I just found an exit and then I just left. And it was like, oh, what the fuck? Like, I was building up towards this whole like satisfying narrative conclusion. I was getting to know the characters and the world and everything, and then I happened to find another way around it, and then it was just over, and it was so much easier. And so like when I come back to the game, I might be curious enough to go through the narrative and like get to know those characters and stuff like that. But if I know that I could just walk through the fucking door and leave, like I'm probably going to be less inclined to do that, because as much as finding a clever solution to a problem is genuinely interesting, I also like have a larger goal in mind, and the larger goal is to get the fuck off the island, right? Like at a certain point it starts not really making sense for my characters to just hang out there for the fuck of it. So that's kind of what I was afraid of with Tears of the Kingdom. I thought that like there would be a whole lot of that shit going on, right? Where I would basically be like, nope, no thank you. Where I would be forced into dealing with these incredibly complicated, intricate, clunky systems. And really what I just wanted to do was, just get to the solution, and was feeling like I was being forced to come up with like an incredibly elaborate way to do so. And I just like just let me go. I know it's right over there. I just want to go over there, right? Like, so I don't know. But I want to try it out. It's not really fair of me to judge it before even giving it a shot, right? Anyway, yeah, Nuts and Bolts definitely feels like it's I think a lot of people were pissed when that game was announced because it wasn't what they were expecting, but it definitely felt like a very innovative and risky thing for the developers to do at the time. It stands out as a pretty unique thing, especially for its time. Let's see. Tears of the Kingdom really goes all in on building contraptions. Yeah, that's not my it's not my favorite. Chris says at least the vehicle crafting, the rest of the crafting was decent. Oh, okay, cool. Loha says, in your opinion, the intro plateau equivalent is really good though. Maybe actually give Tears of the Kingdom a shot. Okay, awesome. See, that's what I want to hear. I really want to check it out in that case. Chris says, I really liked it, but it was beyond the niche genre and definitely got scope creeped. The crafting could be an entire game outside of the Breath of the Wild timeline. Ah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm curious to see what comes out of it, but yeah, I probably won't wind up diving into it the same way I did with, even with this game, let alone like Clair Obscure or something. Let's see. How about Noah says Baldur's Gate 3 is kind of a newbie dungeon master in the sense that it super often treats skills checks as just a content block rather than a moment of potential branching possibilities. Interesting. I felt like there was at least the game was successful enough at like fooling me into thinking that there were enough branching possibilities that I felt like there was a lot of depth. But I wonder how much of that is smoke and mirrors, and if you're more familiar with the system, I'd be curious to hear your take. Hey, Omni Bomni, how's it going? Thank you so much for checking out the stream. Unfortunately, I think I'm just about to leave because I kind of wrapped up what I was wanting to do, and I'm honestly pretty fucking tired. So I think I'm probably gonna head out in a second here, but hope you're doing well. Hope your quest, your adventure is still going well, and I will be back on Sunday for more Hashirama Yappery if you're around for that. Got rid of that rock. Good. Is it actually? Oh, it's still. Oh, I see. The water isn't really all that deep. For some reason, I thought there was like a sheer fall off here, which would be more like an Elden Ring thing, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna head out. Thank you so much for hanging out tonight, you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you on Sunday. Bye bye.